Hey guys, tonight we're journeying to the darkest corners of our own planet, to a place where the laws of biology seem to break down and the monsters of myth are real. Imagine, we are 5,000 meters below the surface. The pressure here is enough to crush a submarine. Around us, there is only absolute black and perfect silence. But in that darkness, a faint light appears. It's a bioluminescent creature, a life form that exists in a way our ancestors on land could never have imagined. Over millions of years, it has evolved to hunt, to hide, to communicate with light. It has witnessed the rise and fall of other species, becoming a master of its eternal, sunless world. So what secrets do these creatures hold about the origin of life itself? Are there even larger monsters lurking in the abyss? And what would happen if we brought them to the surface? Thanks to state-of-the-art unmanned submersibles, tonight we will venture into these depths together to find the answers. Frankly, if you were dropped here without a submersible, you wouldn't survive a single second to realize where you went wrong. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. That small click sends a big signal to the algorithm. That long-form, serious educational content still matters, and to me, it's an incredibly meaningful show of support. Thank you so much for helping keep this channel going strong. It always fascinates me to see where you're all tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin the descent. For now, you are still in your world. You are floating in the epipelagic zone, the layer of the ocean that stretches from the sun-baked surface down to 200 meters. This is the ocean 99.9% of humanity knows. It's the postcard. It's the world of warm, blue water, vibrant coral reefs, darting schools of tuna, and the familiar shapes of dolphins. It is, for all intents and purposes, the ocean as we see it in our imaginations. But it's a ilar. It's a facade. This entire vibrant world, home to 90% of all marine life, is a paper-thin skin on the true body of the ocean. It accounts for less than 3% of the ocean's total volume. It is a statistical anomaly, a bright, shallow lid that covers a much larger, darker, and stranger reality. The engine of this entire crowded zone is the sun. Photosynthesis is the rule of law here. Phytoplankton, the vast, invisible drifting forests of the sea, harness the sunlight. They become the grass of this global pasture. They are eaten by zooplankton, which are eaten by small fish, which are eaten by bigger fish. It's a familiar chain of life, predictable and reliable. This is the world that Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist, tried to catalogue in 77 AD. In his Naturalis Historia, he obsessively listed the creatures of the sea, operating under the charmingly flawed assumption that for every animal on land, the ocean must have a counterpart. He described seahorses, sea cows, and sea serpents. While he was often wrong, his work represents the peak of human understanding of the ocean for over 1,000 years. A place of familiar but different monsters, all existing within the top few meters of water that a net or a free diver could reach. The bottom of this world, the 200-meter mark, isn't a solid line. It's a gradient of fading light. The scientific evidence for this is simple, and you can even do it yourself. This is the photic zone, or sunlight zone, and its depth is entirely dependent on how clear the water is. In coastal areas, choked with sediment and algae, the light might only penetrate 50 meters. In the open, clear blue water ocean, it can reach 200. For over a century, scientists measured this with a Secchi disc, a simple black and white disc lowered on a rope until the observer on the deck can't see it anymore. Today, we use satellites to measure chlorophyll concentrations, mapping the grass of the sea from space. This is the world that Victorians became obsessed with. The 1850s saw a parlor aquarium mania sweep through England. People were desperate to bring a piece of this newly visible world into their homes. But it was also the age of early, and often fatal, attempts at recreational diving. Sieb's closed diving helmet became the standard, but countless inventors drowned, trapped in convoluted contraptions of leather hoses and weighted boots, all just to get a glimpse of this sunlit world. Their imaginations were limited by the length of an air hose. They had no idea that the real ocean, the 97% of it, even existed below their feet. And that's the kicker. We talk about this zone as if we've mapped it, as if it's known. Scientists still debate the exact percentage of marine species that remain undiscovered in this supposedly well-known zone. The answer is likely over 70%. We've barely scratched the surface of the surface. But you are leaving this world behind. You sink past 100 meters. The bright yellows and reds are gone, filtered out by the water. The world is a deep, monochromatic blue. You look up and see the silver shimmering lid of the surface. You sink past 150. The lid is dimmer. You cross the 200-meter mark. The light begins to fail. It is no longer bright enough for photosynthesis. The engine has been shut off. You are now leaving your world behind and entering the vast, true ocean. You are sinking, and the brilliant familiar blue of the sunlight zone has faded to a deep, washed-out indigo. You are in the transition, and for most of human history, no one even knew this layer existed. The ocean was a two-dimensional map, not a three-dimensional volume. It was a surface to be sailed upon, a top layer to be fished. The down was irrelevant. Let's put this in perspective. The average depth of the global ocean is 3,700 meters. That's 2.3 miles. The sunlight zone we just left, that vibrant 200-meter thick film, is a rounding error. This means that the average state of our planet is not the sun-drenched land we live on. The average state of Earth is a place of perpetual blackness, near freezing temperatures, and crushing, almost unimaginable pressure. The bright, airy world we inhabit is the exception, not the rule. For millennia, this profound down was an absolute barrier. It wasn't just a barrier to entry. We simply didn't have the technology. It was a barrier to imagination. What could live down there? In a place with no light, no plants, no heat, and a pressure that would squeeze the air from your lungs in a microsecond. It was not just logical. It was obvious to assume the answer was nothing. This wasn't just a folk belief. For a critical period in history, it was scientific dogma. And it has a name: the Azoic Hypothesis. The man at the center of this was Edward Forbes, a brilliant and deeply respected 19th century naturalist. He wasn't a lazy thinker. He was a data-driven scientist, one of the most prominent of his day. In the 1840s, he sailed the Aegean Sea aboard the Beacon, a survey ship. He did what any good naturalist does. He dredged. He would lower a dredge, essentially a heavy metal-framed bag, to the seafloor, scoop up whatever was there, and haul it back up to catalogue. He was meticulous. He dredged at different depths and kept a careful tally. At the surface, life was abundant. At 100 meters, it was less so. At 300 meters, he was finding only a few sparse creatures. He plotted this data on a graph. He saw a clear, undeniable trend. The deeper you go, the less life you find. Like a proper Victorian scientist, he extrapolated this trend line to its logical conclusion. He calculated that at approximately 300 fathoms, or 550 meters, the line would hit zero. His conclusion was simple, elegant, and profoundly wrong. The deep ocean, below 550 meters, was a void. He called it the Azoic zone, or lifeless zone. He argued that the combination of darkness, pressure, and the absence of vegetation, photosynthesis, made life a biological impossibility. Because Forbes was such a titan in his field, this wasn't just a theory, it became the theory. This historical fact is crucial. Forbes's Azoic Hypothesis was accepted as scientific fact for decades. It was taught in universities from London to Boston, and this had a chilling, stifling effect on an entire field of study. Why would any nation spend a fortune building complex, expensive equipment to explore a place that was guaranteed to be empty? It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, a void created by a lack of imagination. We now know, of course, why his data was so skewed. The scientific evidence against him is twofold. First, his equipment was rudimentary. His dredge was small, light, and inefficient. It's likely that any fast or large deep-sea creatures simply swam or scuttled out of the way. Second, and most importantly, he was sampling in the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean is a famously oligotrophic sea, a nutrient-poor, almost sterile basin. It is a biological desert compared to the rich, roiling waters of the Atlantic or Pacific. Forbes was, in essence, studying a forest by dragging a tiny net through its most barren and desolate patch. Forbes's theory wasn't created in a vacuum either. It fit perfectly with the fringe tidbits and mythology of the time. While sailors had their krakens and sea serpents, which, as we'll see, were surface-level fears, there was a darker, more philosophical myth, that the deep was a gateway to the underworld, a place of silent, cold nothingness. Seafaring lore from the 19th century wasn't just about monsters. It was about vast, dead regions of the sea, where the water was still and the winds were quiet. Forbes had just given this ancient, eerie feeling a scientific stamp of approval. This has left a complicated legacy. Historians still argue whether Forbes's reputation ultimately hindered oceanography more than his actual and very good shallow water discoveries helped it. He was a great scientist who, through one grand logical error, may have put the brakes on an entire field of study for a generation. This lifeless void theory was, well, it was comfortable. It was neat. It reinforced the idea of a surface world designed for us, a bright place of light and air, existing on top of a sterile, empty foundation. It put humanity and the sun at the center of a living world. But this comfortable, empty void was a fantasy, and it was about to be proven wrong in the most spectacular and frankly messy way possible. The Azoic Hypothesis was a neat, tidy theory, and like most neat theories about the natural world, it was shattered by accident. The first crack in Forbes's lifeless void came not from a scientist, but from an engineer. It was the 1860s, the dawn of global communication. Massive, armored telegraph cables were being laid across the Atlantic seabed. A triumph of Victorian engineering. In 1860, a cable between Sardinia and Algeria failed. It was hauled up for repair from a depth of over 2,000 meters. far, far below Forbes's 550-meter 0 point. When the cable breached the surface, it wasn't just a dead, muddy wire. It was covered in life. There were corals, mollusks, and tube-dwelling worms, all very much alive and well. This was a direct, irrefutable contradiction. It was a single, inconvenient fact that threatened to topple the entire Azoic theory. The void, it seemed, was not empty. This singular event, combined with growing scientific curiosity, was the catalyst. The British government, in a rare and extraordinary moment of scientific foresight, greenlit the most ambitious scientific expedition in history. This was the voyage of the HMS Challenger. From 1872 to 1876, this single refitted naval vessel circumnavigated the globe. This was not a voyage of discovery in the old sense. They weren't looking for new lands or trade routes. This was the world's first dedicated global oceanographic science mission. Its goal was singular: to sail the world's oceans and, for the first time, systematically and scientifically find out what was down there. The scale of this undertaking is staggering. This is a hard historical fact. The Challenger expedition sailed nearly 70,000 nautical miles, a distance that could have taken it to the moon and back. The crew performed 492 deep-sea soundings and 133 seafloor dredges. By the time it was all over, the expedition's naturalists, led by its chief scientist Charles Wyville Thomson, had catalogued over 4,700 new species. The final report filled 50 massive volumes and took 19 years to publish. Their primary method for charting the down was brutal in its simplicity. To find the depth, they used a sounding line, a thick, heavy rope, sometimes miles long, with a heavy lead weight at the end. They would play this rope out by hand and steam winch until the line suddenly went slack, meaning the weight had finally hit the bottom. A single sounding in a deep part of the Pacific could take an entire day. It was during one of these grueling soundings in the Pacific that they recorded a staggering depth of over 8,000 meters. They didn't know it was the deepest point, but they had found the Mariana Trench. They gave this new, impossibly deep realm a name, the Abyss, from the Greek abyssos, meaning bottomless. One of the expedition's primary and strangest goals was to find something called Bathybius. This was a fringe tidbit of 19th century science. A few years earlier, a naturalist had discovered a strange gelatinous slime in a jar of preserved seafloor mud. He proclaimed it to be Bathybius haeckelii, a vast primordial protoplasm that supposedly carpeted the entire ocean floor. This slime, he argued, was the origin of all life, a living primordial soup. The Challenger was tasked with finding and dredging up this mythical mother slime. But the expedition's most important scientific evidence came from its dredges. Charles Wyville Thomson, the chief scientist, was a skeptic of the Azoic theory. He was the one who had studied the cable, and he was determined to prove Forbes wrong. On December 30th, 1872, the Challenger performed a dredge in the North Atlantic at 4,400 meters, 8 times deeper than Forbes's limit. The dredge came up full of life: mollusks, crabs, sea urchins, and delicate sea lilies. Crinoids. He had done it. The Azoic Hypothesis was dead. Killed by a single bucket of mud, Thomson proved definitively that life existed at all depths. And what about that primordial slime, Bathybius? It turned out to be a huge, embarrassing scientific letdown. The expedition's chemist proved that the slime was just a chemical precipitate, seawater reacting with the alcohol used to preserve the mud samples. It was an artifact, not an organism. The Challenger's legacy is, well, it's complicated. It gave us the word oceanography and built the foundation for the entire science. But biologists still argue over the Challenger's taxonomy. Many of the 4,700 new species it catalogued were later found to be larval or juvenile forms of already known animals. Their methods were clumsy, their nets were crude, and their understanding was limited. But they did it. The void was not empty. It was full. And as you sink past that 200-meter mark, you are leaving the world the Challenger left behind and entering the first layer of this newly discovered world, the Twilight Zone. You cross the 200-meter threshold, and the world changes instantly. The comfortable, sunlit realm is gone. You are now sinking through the Mesopelagic Zone, better known as the Twilight Zone. It's a name that is poetically and scientifically perfect. It stretches from 200 meters down to 1,000 meters. This is a world defined by a lack. The light here is no longer a life-giving force for photosynthesis. It is a faint, ethereal, and dying memory of the sun. It's not pure blackness. Not yet. It's a vast, empty cathedral of deep, fading blues and violets. The pressure is no longer trivial. You are feeling the weight of the water now. At 1,000 meters, the pressure will reach 100 atmospheres, or 1,470 pounds per square inch. It's the equivalent of a concert grand piano being balanced on your thumbnail. This watery feeling is the first true handshake of the deep, a physical reminder that you are an alien intruder in a world that is actively trying to crush you. But this zone, this seemingly empty, dim, in-between space, is home to the single most profound biological feature you've never heard of. Its discovery was, like so many great scientific leaps, a complete accident, born from a time of war. During World War II, sonar operators on destroyers and submarines began noticing something wrong. Sonar, sound navigation, and ranging was the new magic, a way to see in the dark by bouncing sound waves off objects. It was designed to find two things, the enemy and the bottom. But operators started getting baffling readings. They would get a clear ping from a seafloor at, say, 400 meters, but the nautical charts for the area would clearly state the actual seafloor was 1,500 meters down. Worse, this false bottom would move. It would be at 400 meters during the day, and at night it would rise, sometimes all the way to the surface, and seem to vanish, only to reappear and sink back down at dawn. This phantom seafloor was a military nightmare. Were the charts wrong? Was it a new kind of enemy stealth device? Was it a monster? This fringe tidbit is a testament to the confusion. Some early panicked operators filed reports of moving seafloors or phantom submarines of impossible size. The historical fact is that this phenomenon, dubbed the Deep Scattering Layer, DSL, was immediately classified as a military secret. The US Navy didn't know what it was, but they knew it scattered sonar, and if it could scatter their sonar, it could hide their submarines from the enemy's sonar. Naval commanders issued tactical orders, dive the boat into the layer. They were, in effect, ordering their men to hide their multi-million-dollar war machines inside a living ghost. It wasn't until after the war, in 1945, that scientist Martin W. Johnson, armed with this newly declassified data, finally provided the scientific evidence to solve the mystery. The false bottom wasn't rock. It wasn't a phantom. It was life. The sonar was pinging off the tiny, gas-filled swim bladders of trillions of lanternfish, bristlemouths, and the bodies of countless squid, krill, and copepods. This layer of life is the twilight zone, and its daily movement is the largest migration on Earth, happening every 24 hours. You are in it. As dusk falls on the surface far above, this entire globe-spanning community of life begins to rise. They ascend hundreds of meters, from the safe dark of the mesopelagic to the food-rich, dangerous, moonlit waters of the epipelagic. They feed all night, gorging on the phytoplankton and smaller zooplankton. Then, as the first hint of dawn approaches, they begin the great descent, a trillion-strong waterfall of life, fleeing back down to the dim, safe, pressurized shadows. They are hiding from the visual predators, the tuna, the sharks, the seabirds, that hunt by daylight. This isn't just a commute. This is the biological pump, the beating heart of the planet's climate. This daily migration is the single greatest vertical movement of biomass on Earth. These creatures eat carbon at the surface and then transport it, in their own bodies, down into the deep, where they exhale it. This process moves billions of tons of carbon from the surface to the deep sea every year. Without this daily, silent, vertical conveyor belt, the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere would be significantly higher. It is a planetary thermostat, operated by fish you've never seen, in a place you never knew existed. And the scale of it is still a matter of profound debate. We know it's the largest migration, but how much life is in it? Ecologists still argue about the total biomass of the DSL estimates are all over the place, but the most conservative ones are still mind-boggling. Some suggest the total weight of the fish in the DSL alone is 10 times the weight of all fish caught by humans globally each year. Other estimates, including all the krill and squid, suggest the biomass is greater than all other vertebrates on Earth combined. You are sinking through this living, moving, breathing layer. It is a world of dim shapes and fleeting shadows. The last photons from the sun, the ones that made it to 500 meters, 600 meters, they finally vanish. At 1,000 meters, you cross the threshold. The twilight zone is above you. You are in the true, absolute black. But you are not in darkness. A new light appears, and this one is not from the sun. You have crossed the 1,000-meter mark. The last photon of sunlight, the final dying wisp of a blue-violet ray, has been extinguished. You are now officially in the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. It stretches from 1,000 meters down to 4,000. It is not like midnight. It is midnight. A permanent, planet-wide, pressurized midnight that has not seen the sun in 1 billion years. There is no day, no night, no seasons, only a constant, crushing, cold black. And yet, the darkness is not dark. As your eyes adjust, you realize the void is full of lights. Pinpricks of blue, sudden flashes of green. Slow, ghostly green swirls. It's a living constellation, a silent, endless, three-dimensional firework show. This is bioluminescence. This is the central paradox of the deep. In a world defined by the absolute absence of one light, life has created its own. On the surface, bioluminescence is a novelty. It's a wow moment. You see a firefly in your backyard. You see the foxfire of glowing fungi on a rotting log. You see a red tide glowing blue in the surf. It's a charming, rare exception. Down here, it is the rule. It's not an exception. It's the language. Estimates are that over 90% of all organisms living at this depth use, create, or interact with bioluminescence. To not have light is to be the odd one out. This isn't magic. It's just incredibly efficient chemistry. To make light, you need two things. First, a fuel molecule, called luciferin. Second, a spark enzyme, called luciferase. When the enzyme, the spark, acts on the fuel, luciferin, in the presence of oxygen, the reaction releases energy, and that energy is released as light. It is cold light, a masterpiece of biological engineering. An old incandescent light bulb in your home is a hot light device. It's a heater that accidentally makes a little light, wasting 90% of its energy as heat. This deep-sea light is the opposite. It's over 98% efficient, wasting almost no energy as heat. It is a pure, cold, biological photon. This living light wasn't completely unknown to the surface world. This historical fact might surprise you. Benjamin Franklin, a man obsessed with every form of energy, was one of the first to scientifically study it. On his many transatlantic voyages, he was fascinated by the glowing wake of his ship. He noted how the sea would sparkle at night. He dipped a bucket, agitated the water, and was the first to seriously hypothesize that this light was not the sea absorbing and releasing sunlight, but the product of tiny living animals. So why go to all this trouble? Why be a 90% efficient light bulb in the middle of nowhere? The first reason is the most obvious: defense. But it's not the defense you think. This is the burglar alarm theory. Imagine you are a tiny translucent shrimp. A small fish, silent and dark, darts in and grabs you. You are about to be eaten. You have one desperate last-ditch defense. You scream with light. You spray a cloud of glowing bioluminescent ink, a blinding flash of blue. Now this does not blind your attacker. Your attacker lives in the dark. It's not bothered by a little light. No, the light does something far more clever and far more devious. It illuminates your attacker. You have just put a spotlight on the fish that is trying to eat you. This flash now acts as a beacon to every other larger predator in the area. A bigger fish, seeing the lit-up, distracted smaller fish, darts in for an easy meal. In the ensuing chaos, you, the shrimp, have a decent chance to escape. You just called the cops by making your mugger visible to the whole neighborhood. The second defensive trick is even more elegant. It's the ultimate invisibility cloak. The scientific evidence for this is found on creatures like the hatchetfish. This is the high-tech stealth of the twilight zone, the layer you just passed through. Imagine you are a predator below a hatchetfish. Looking up, what do you see? You see the faint, blue, shimmering sky of the surface, 1,000 meters up. And against that faint light, you would see the silhouette, the dark shadow of the hatchetfish. It would be a perfect target. The hatchetfish's solution? It erases its own shadow. Its entire belly is lined with rows of light-producing organs called photophores. These are not simple on switches. The fish has sensors on its back that constantly read the exact color and intensity of the blue light filtering down from above. It then perfectly matches that light with its own photophores, projecting the same faint blue light downwards. The result? Its silhouette is perfectly cancelled out. It becomes invisible to any predators hunting from below. This is such a brilliant, effective strategy that, of course, humans tried to copy it. This fringe tidbit is a piece of classified military history. The US Navy spent millions during World War II developing Yehudi lights for its aircraft. The plan was to mount lights on the wings and fuselage of bombers, all pointing forward. The lights would match the ambient brightness of the sky, making the plane's dark silhouette invisible to lookouts on surfaced U-boats. It was pure hatchetfish-inspired camouflage. This simple, powerful chemistry, this cold light, is so effective that it's a nightmare for evolutionary biologists. Scientists still argue whether bioluminescence evolved once, in a single deep, ancient ancestor, and was then lost by most of life, or if it evolved independently over 40 different times. The chemistry is just too simple and too good. It seems that in the deep, dark ocean, whenever life had a problem, how to hide, how to hunt, how to find a mate, the answer was almost always, add light. But this living light isn't just for hiding. It's also for hunting. And the lures used by the predators here, they are the stuff of nightmares. This living light is not just for defense. It's also a weapon. And in the Midnight Zone, the predators have evolved hunting tools that are part nightmare, part biological marvel. You are floating in the absolute crushing blackness. There is nothing in any direction. Then you see it. A single, faint, blue-green light. It's small, and it's bobbing. It dances and twitches like a tiny, mesmerized firefly. It's hypnotic. You feel an urge to move toward it, to see what it is. As you get closer, the light suddenly reveals the monster it's attached to. You've just met the anglerfish. She is the most iconic and arguably the most terrifying predator of the deep. The light is just the beginning. It's the esker, a fleshy, wriggling lure that sits at the end of a long, flexible spine, a modified part of her dorsal fin. She can twitch this fishing rod, making the lure dance and pulse, an irresistible invitation in the dark. But the fish. The fish is a monster. She is a globular, fleshy, non-aerodynamic blob. She has a massive, gaping mouth that seems to be 80% of her body, and it's filled with long, sharp, needle-like teeth. These teeth are not for chewing, they are for trapping, and they are angled inwards, like the barbs of a fishhook. Whatever is lured in by that light, whatever passes that threshold, can only go one way. Down, her jaw can unhinge, and her stomach can distend to an impossible degree, allowing her to swallow prey twice her own size. She is, in essence, a living, swimming, sentient bear trap. A stomach with a lure attached. The secret of her lure is a perfect example of deep-sea efficiency. The light, the esker, isn't her light. She can't make it herself. The glow comes from a symbiotic colony of bioluminescent bacteria living in that fleshy little sac. She has become a farmer. She provides the bacteria with a safe, warm, protected house, and she feeds them with her own blood, a constant supply of oxygen and sugar. In return, the bacteria pay rent by providing the 24/7 high-efficiency light she needs to hunt. It's a perfect unholy partnership. But as strange as her anatomy is, it's her mate that reveals the true bizarre nature of the deep. This is the truly strange part. The male anglerfish is, well, he's pathetic. He's tiny, often 100 times smaller than the female. He is born with almost no purpose. He has no lure. His digestive system is atrophied and useless. He cannot even eat for himself. He is essentially a swimming nose, built for one single desperate task: to find a female in a pitch-black ocean the size of a planet. The scientific evidence for what happens next is one of the most extreme examples of sexual dimorphism on Earth. If the male is lucky, if he manages to smell her pheromones and follow her trail, he will bite her anywhere. Her flank, her belly, it doesn't matter. And then he never lets go. His body begins to fuse with hers. His jaw dissolves. His skin melts into her skin. Their circulatory systems merge. He becomes, quite literally, a part of her. He loses his own eyes, his fins, his own organs. He degenerates, becoming nothing more than a tiny, fleshy, parasitic appendage, a living scrotum permanently attached to her body, drawing all his nutrients directly from her blood. He has become a dedicated, on-board sperm bank. When she is ready to lay her eggs, she draws sperm from this parasitic male, or males. Some females are found with 6 or 7 of these tiny, fused bodies attached. This discovery was a long, confusing process. For decades, this is a historical fact. Scientists kept dredging up only female anglerfish. They also kept finding these tiny, strange, parasitic fish, which they classified as a completely different, unrelated species, Paraceratius. They had no idea that the parasite was actually the male of the same species. It took decades for them to put the pieces together and realize they were looking at the most extreme mating strategy on the planet. And this is just the start of the light wars in the deep. Down in the fringes of the deep, there are creatures like the stoplight loosejaw. This fish has evolved a sniper scope. It has a bioluminescent organ under its eye that produces red light. Now this is pure genius. Almost all deep-sea creatures, shrimp, fish, squid, have evolved to see the blue and green light of bioluminescence. But they have lost the ability to see red light. It's the first color to be filtered out by water, so it's useless. The stoplight loosejaw can see red light. So it patrols the dark, shining, and invisible red beam. Its prey, the shrimp, is illuminated, painted by the red light. But the shrimp can't see it. It has no idea it's in a sniper's crosshairs. The loosejaw attacks, a silent, invisible hunter. This is a world of total alien warfare, and the rules are still being discovered. Biologists still argue about the specifics of anglerfish mating. How do the males, with their poor senses, even find the females in the first place? The scent trail pheromone idea is the leading theory, but the sheer, vast, three-dimensional emptiness of the deep makes the odds seem impossible. These creatures, the anglerfish, the loosejaw, they are masters of their dark, pressurized world. But they are small. They are monsters in miniature. The true giants of the deep, the ones that inspired the legends, they are not just bigger. They are in a class of their own. You are about to meet the Titans. You are now deep in the midnight zone. 2,000 meters down. The pressure is a relentless 200 atmospheres, and the temperature is a constant, near-freezing 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a world of crushing, cold, and eternal blackness, punctuated only by the pinprick lights of tiny, alien creatures. But this is also the realm of legends. For centuries, sailors, not just in one part of the world, but all over the world, told stories of the same monster. The Norse called it the Kraken. They described a beast so colossal it could be mistaken for an island, one with massive arms that could reach up, grab the mast of a warship, and pull the entire vessel and its crew down into the abyss. It was the ultimate nightmare, the here be monsters on the edge of the map. And for 400 years, from the age of sail to the dawn of steam, respectable society and scientists dismissed it as pure fantasy, the drunken ramblings of superstitious, sun-stoked sailors. But the sailors were right. This is a fascinating historical fact. The Kraken wasn't a myth. It was just misidentified. The legend was almost certainly based on a real animal. And scientists should have known better, because the respectable thinkers of antiquity had already described it. Aristotle, in the 4th century BC, wrote of the teuthus, or giant squid, describing it as a monster of the deep. A few centuries later, Pliny the Elder gave a chillingly accurate description of one with a body the size of a cask and arms 30 feet long. But for 1,800 years, this was all dismissed as legend. Then came the 1870s. In Newfoundland, Canada, a series of bizarre events changed everything. The Kraken came to the surface. Over a few short years, a dozen of these monsters washed ashore or were found, dying in the shallow bays. In November 1873, a minister and amateur naturalist named Moses Harvey got his hands on one. A fisherman had captured it, and Harvey bought the corpse, dragged it into his study, and photographed it draped over his shower curtain. The myth was dead. The animal was real. The animal was Architeuthis dux, the giant squid. This is the creature you are now floating beside, and the first thing you notice is, it's not bulky, it's long. It is an engine of pure streamlined speed. It is the racer of the deep. Its main body, the mantle, is the size of a person, a muscular torpedo-shaped cone. It has 8 thick, sucker-lined arms for grappling, but its true weapons are 2 specialized feeding tentacles, which are almost impossibly long. They can be 10 meters, 33 feet long, a third of a bowling alley. These tentacles are usually kept coiled inside the body, but they can be shot out with explosive speed to snatch prey, their ends tipped with clubs covered in hundreds of serrated chitinous sucker rings. And then there's the eye. To find its prey in this dark, it has evolved the largest eye of any common creature in the animal kingdom. It is the size of a dinner plate. It is a massive, light-gathering engine, a biological telescope designed for one purpose, to capture the faint, distant, bioluminescent flashes of its prey, or the looming, bioluminescent shadow of its only predator, the sperm whale. Its only hard part, the only thing that doesn't just melt when it dies, is its beak. Tucked inside its head, at the center of its web of arms, is a jet-black, chitinous, parrot-like beak, capable of slicing through the spine of a large fish. For all its size, the giant squid is a ghost. After the Newfoundland flurries, it vanished again for 130 years. We only knew it from beaks found in whale stomachs and the occasional rotting specimen. It wasn't until 2012 that the animal was finally captured on video, alive, in its natural habitat. The scientific evidence comes from a team of Japanese scientists, and it took them 100 separate missions in a deep-sea submersible before they finally filmed one. That is how elusive this creature is. It's a true alien in its biology. This fringe tidbit is a perfect example. Your blood is red because it's iron-based. Hemoglobin. The giant squid's blood is blue. It's copper-based, using a molecule called hemocyanin. This seems inefficient, But hemocyanin is far more effective at binding to and transporting oxygen in the extreme cold and low oxygen environment of the midnight zone. It's a cold-blooded solution for a cold-blooded world. And for all this, we still know almost nothing about it. Scientists are still in a heated debate about how many species of giant squid there are. Is Architeuthis dux one single global species found from Newfoundland to New Zealand? Or are there over 20 different cryptic species, as some early taxonomists argued? The DNA we have is ambiguous, and the samples are too few and too far between. The Kraken, it seems, is still holding on to its greatest secrets. You watch the massive, 40-foot creature drift past you, a living legend. It is an icon of the deep, the monster we all imagined. But as huge as the giant squid is, it is not the king. It is not the apex predator. In the coldest, darkest waters of the far south, there is another, a heavier, more powerful, and frankly more terrifying predator. The giant squid is a legend, but it does not reign everywhere. You are sinking now into the water of the Southern Ocean, near the Antarctic. The water here is even colder, denser, and more hostile. Here, the giant squid is just a contender. You are about to meet the heavyweight champion. You are floating next to Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni, the colossal squid. If the giant squid you just saw was the racer of the deep, long, fast, and streamlined, this is the tank. It's not as long as its Architeuthis cousin. It doesn't have those impossibly long 30-foot feeding tentacles, but it is much, much heavier. It is the largest invertebrate on Earth by mass. The largest confirmed specimen, a female caught in the Ross Sea in 2007, was a staggering 495 kilograms. That's 1,091 pounds. It's a half-ton squid, and terrifying is an understatement. You look at its arms. The giant squid had suckers, lined with chitinous teeth. This is different. The colossal squid's arms and tentacles are not just lined with suckers. They are lined with rotating, swiveling, serrated, three-pointed hooks. This is not a grabber. This is a ripper. These biological meat hooks can swivel 360 degrees to lock onto prey, ensuring that whatever it grabs does not escape. The scientific evidence for how devastating these weapons are comes from two places. First, the few specimens we've caught, and second, the scars they leave behind. This is the crucial part. You've probably seen pictures of the head and body of a sperm whale, which is the colossal's main predator. Those bodies are covered in scars, but there are two kinds. You'll see the familiar, circular, coin-sized scars. Those are from the sucker rings of the giant squid. But then you'll see deep, parallel, 1-inch-long gashes, like the animal was raked with a scythe. Those are the calling cards of the colossal squid. Those are the hook marks, the evidence of a deep-sea title fight. To survive this war, the colossal squid has evolved the largest eye on Earth. The giant's eye was a dinner plate. This eye is the size of a basketball. It can be up to 30 centimeters or 12 inches across. It is a massive biological lens, a piece of surveillance equipment so large it's almost absurd. But it has to be. It's not for seeing in the light. It's for seeing in the dark, for capturing the faintest bioluminescent shadows of its only true enemy, the 50-ton sperm whale, approaching from hundreds of meters away. Like its cousin, this creature was a ghost for a century. This is a historical fact. The colossal squid was first discovered in 1925. but not as a full animal. All scientists found were two of its arms, floating in the ocean, having been torn off and left behind, presumably from the stomach of a sperm whale. For the next 80 years, that's all we had. It was a ghost, known only by its severed limbs and the scars it left on its enemy. The 2007 specimen, the giant 495-kilogram female, is now preserved in the Te Papa Museum in New Zealand, and this fringe tidbit perfectly illustrates its scale. It is so enormous that it has to be kept in a custom-built 1,400-liter tank filled with glycol. When scientists first had to thaw it for study, they couldn't just leave it out. The outside would have rotted completely before the solid frozen inside even began to defrost. They had to use a microwave in a specialized, room-sized facility to slowly and carefully thaw the half-ton monster from the inside out. And for all this, we still have one massive, unanswered question. Biologists still argue about the colossal's metabolism. Is it an active, powerful hunter engaging in epic, high-speed battles with whales, as the hooks and scars would suggest? Or is it something else? Is it a sit-and-wait ambush predator? Is its metabolism incredibly slow, meaning it's not a tank, but a living drift net? A half-ton ghost that just hangs, motionless in the dark, waiting for fish to swim into its web of hooks? The truth is, we have never seen one alive in the wild. We have no idea. This war between the whale and the squid, a battle of 50-ton titans and half-ton hook monsters, is the greatest war on Earth, and it happens every day in the pitch-black, crushing dark. But not all giants are fighters. Not all of them are built for war. Some are just long, impossibly, beautifully, and mythologically long. You see a new shape in the gloom. This isn't a squid. It's not a whale. It's not a blob. It's a ribbon. A 30-foot-long silver shimmering ribbon swimming by itself. It's undulating, like a piece of tinsel caught in a breeze. You are looking at the oarfish, Regalicus glesner. This is quite simply the world's longest bony fish. This is it. This is the monster. If the kraken was the legend of the ship puller, this animal is the true source of 99% of all sea serpent myths. The anatomy is a perfect match for a monster. The body is long, sinuous, and ribbon-like. It's not a cylinder. It's compressed, like a piece of tape. It has no scales, just a silvery, slimy skin called guanine that's marked with blue-black spots and splotches. But its most spectacular feature, the one that makes it a monster, is its dorsal fin. It has a brilliant crimson-red dorsal fin that starts at its head and runs the entire 30-foot length of its body. At its head, this fin is elongated into a mane of red, streaming plumes. Imagine you are a 17th century sailor. You've been at sea for 6 months. A storm hits, and in the chaotic, foaming water, you see this: a 30-foot-long silver snake with a red mane, undulating on the surface. You have just seen the sea serpent. The historical fact is that oarfish strandings have been documented for centuries. The fish, often sick, dying, or caught in a storm, will wash ashore. And their arrival, these 30-foot-long monsters appearing on a beach, is almost certainly the origin of these global sea serpent legends. For the longest time, this was the only way we knew they existed. We only saw them when they were dead or dying, which led us to assume they were deep-sea creatures. But the scientific evidence tells a different, much stranger story. We only got the first video of a healthy, living oarfish in its own element in 2008, thanks to a remotely operated vehicle, OV, and what it was doing baffled everyone. It wasn't swimming horizontally like a snake, it was hanging. The oarfish orients itself vertically in the water column. Head up, tail down, a 30-foot-long ribbon just standing in the dark. It's thought to be its primary hunting strategy. By hanging vertically, it can use its massive eyes to scan the 360-degree water above it, a much wider field of view. It's looking for tiny prey, krill, small crustaceans, and squid. When a cloud of krill drifts overhead, it uses its tiny, protrusible, like a tube, mouth to filter feed them. It is a 30-foot-long, red-maned sea serpent that eats like a tiny minnow. This omen status is global. This fringe tidbit is one of the most famous. In Japan, the oarfish is known as Ryugu no Tsukai, which translates to the messenger from the sea god's palace. Its appearance is a legendary omen. A mass stranding, like the one that happened in 2010, is traditionally believed to be a warning of a powerful, impending earthquake. To be clear, seismologists have studied this, and there is no scientific correlation. But the myth is powerful, and it's hard to shake the feeling that these messengers from the deep know something we don't. We've seen these dead specimens, we've seen the videos, but we still don't know the most basic thing about them. How big do they get? Scientists still argue about their maximum size. Specimens are confirmed up to 11 meters, 36 feet. But anecdotal reports, sightings, and stranding records regularly claim 15 meters, 50 feet, or even 17 meters, 56 feet. At this point, it's almost impossible to separate the myth from the reality. We have seen these giants now. The hook-covered squid, the 30-foot messenger, the living fishing lure. The midnight zone is a freak show of titans. But the question that echoed from the surface, the question from that 19-minute video, still hangs in the water. Why? Why do they get so big? In a world with less food, less heat, less oxygen, and more pressure, why would this be the place that makes giants? The answers are not simple, and they're going to challenge our most basic, fundamental ideas about what it means to be alive. You're floating in this cold, dark, crushing void, surrounded by ghosts and giants, and the paradox is screaming at you. The deep sea is a terrible place to live. The pressure is trying to crush your molecules. The temperature is a permanent 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And most importantly, there is no food. Everything here is surviving on the leftovers, the marine snow, the faint dusting of dead plankton, and the occasional lottery win of a dead whale from the world 2 miles above. All of our land-based logic says this environment should produce small life. Tiny, hyper-efficient, calorie-pinching, fast-reproducing survivors. Instead, it produces the colossal squid, the 40-foot oarfish, and the 400-year-old shark. Why? The first answer, and the most widely accepted, is the first law of deep-sea gigantism. The cold, slow path to size. This theory is really an extension of a 19th century biological rule called Bergmann's rule, which notes that animals in colder climates, like a polar bear, tend to be much larger than their counterparts in warm climates, like a sun bear. The deep sea is the ultimate cold climate. The mechanism is simple, and it's not biology, it's chemistry. The near-freezing water is a global constant. Cold temperatures slow down all chemical reactions, and life at its core is just a very, very complex set of chemical reactions. We call this metabolism. In the 4 degrees Celsius water, the metabolism of every cold-blooded creature is put into an enforced low-power mode. A slow metabolism means a slow rate of growth. A fish here might take 10 years to grow, as much as a tropical fish grows in 6 months. But a slow metabolism also means a slow rate of aging. It means a dramatically long lifespan. A fish on a warm, sunlit coral reef might be old at 5 years. A deep-sea fish might not even be sexually mature until it's 30, and it might live for 150 years. Now, add the final critical ingredient, indeterminate growth. Most mammals, like you, are determinate growers. You grow to your adult size, and then you stop. Many fish, invertebrates, and reptiles, however, are indeterminate growers. They never stop growing. As long as they are alive, they get bigger. Now let's combine those 2 factors. Indeterminate growth plus a 150-year lifespan. You get a giant. The animal isn't trying to be big, it's just old. Its size is a byproduct of its immense age. The most tragic scientific evidence for this is the orange ruffy. You've probably seen it in the supermarket. In the 1980s, we found massive assemblies of these fish on seamounts. We thought it was a new, booming fishery. We trawled them up by the ton. Then, in the 1990s, the science came in. By counting the growth rings on their otoliths, ear bones, scientists discovered the awful truth. The orange ruffy lives for 150 to 200 years. The fish on our plates, the ones we were catching, they were 100 years old. They had been born before World War I. The fishery collapsed because their slow life strategy, which works perfectly in the stable deep, cannot possibly handle that level of predation. This whole concept of metabolic rate is a historical fact that dates back to the 1780s. The brilliant and ill-fated French chemist Antoine Lavoisier, before he met the guillotine, was the first to truly measure it. He placed a guinea pig in an ice calorimeter, a device that measured heat output. By measuring the animal's oxygen consumption and heat, he proved for the first time that life was a form of slow, steady combustion. He proved that breathing was a chemical process of burning fuel. He would be fascinated to see what his combustion looks like at 4 degrees Celsius and 400 atmospheres. The most extreme example of this cold adaptation is a fringe tidbit from the other coldest place on Earth, Antarctica. There are fish there, the ice fish, that have evolved to have no hemoglobin at all. Their blood is clear. The Antarctic water is so cold, it can hold far more dissolved oxygen. The ice fish has evolved to simply absorb oxygen directly through its skin and gills, with no need for the iron-based red blood cells we have. This all leads to a classic chicken and egg scholarly debate. Is this slow, long life a direct chemical reaction to the cold? Is it a necessity? The cold just forces all reactions to be slow. Or is it an evolutionary adaptation that was selected for? Is it possible that, in the deep, a slow life strategy is just better? The outcome is the same, but the why is still a fight. So you live a long time. You never stop growing. That explains the size. But a long life is useless if you starve. In a world where food is a distant, fading memory, how do you survive for 150 years? As it turns out, being big is the answer to that problem, not the cause of it. So, you've solved the first part of the puzzle. The cold water gives you a long 150-year life, and your indeterminate growth means you just keep getting bigger. But this creates a new, more urgent problem. A long life is useless if you starve. You are now sinking to 4,000 meters. You are on the abyssopelagic plain. This is a food desert. It is the single largest habitat on Earth, and it is almost completely empty. The only source of energy comes from the sky, but not the sun. It comes from the marine snow, that constant, faint, and nutritionally terrible dusting of dead plankton, fecal pellets, and dust from the world miles above. 99% of the food from the surface is eaten, decomposes, or dissolves long before it ever reaches this depth. The snow that arrives here is the last, most picked-over dreg. The only other option is the food fall, the whale carcass. A meal that might happen once in this square mile every 50 years. This is the tyranny of scarcity. How do you survive for 150 years in a place where the pantry is locked and the key arrives once a generation? This brings us to the second law of gigantism, the energy storage model. And this one is completely counterintuitive. In a world of scarcity, we assume small and efficient is the answer. The deep sea argues the opposite. It argues that big is more efficient. The science behind this is a core biological rule called Kleiber's law. It's simple but profound. As an animal gets bigger, its metabolic rate per pound gets slower. A tiny 1-pound shrew has a frantic, out-of-control metabolism. It has to eat constantly, or it will starve in a few hours. A 1-pound cat has a slower metabolism per pound. A 1,000-pound cow has a massively slow metabolism per pound. A 150,000-pound blue whale. Its heart beats 5 times a minute. It is the definition of low and slow. Big bodies are just better at holding heat and energy. Now, let's apply this law to the deep. Remember the giant isopod, Bathynomus giganteus, from the video? The roly-poly the size of a cat? This is its moment. This is its entire evolutionary strategy. It is not big by accident. It is big on purpose. It is a scavenger. It crawls along this vast, empty, muddy desert, waiting. It might find a dead fish one week. It might find nothing for the next 18 months, and then, one day, it smells it. A 40-ton whale carcass has landed a mile away. This is the only meal that matters. The isopod and all its cousins descend, they gorge themselves. They are designed to be a living pantry. They eat the blubber until their bodies are visibly distended, storing massive amounts of fat and lipids they have to, because this one meal might be the only meal they get for the next 5 years. This isn't a guess. We have the scientific evidence. The Toba Aquarium in Japan had a giant isopod known as Number 1. In 2009, it ate a mackerel, and then it just stopped eating. The keepers offered it food day after day. It refused. It sat, almost motionless. It fasted for 5 years and 41 days. In 2014, it finally died, but it proved the point. This isn't a bug, it's a survival tank, a biological low-power mode that can be sustained for years. A smaller isopod, with its faster, per-pound metabolism, would have burned through its reserves and starved in 6 months. Size has another equally important benefit: range and endurance. Kleiber's law also means that a big animal can travel farther on less energy per mile. A giant isopod can cross more of the foodless desert, using fewer calories than a small one. This dramatically increases its chances of being the one to find that rare, dead fish. It's a bigger net for catching calories. This whole idea of fasting as a biological state is, morbidly, a historical fact that was first seriously studied during the Irish famine. In the 1840s, doctors in Cork and Dublin, overwhelmed with starving patients, began to morbidly document the medical stages of starvation, noting the body's horrifying but brilliant shut-down sequence to preserve life. They were, in a way, the first to study the slow life strategy that the isopod has perfected. This strategy, of course, makes the isopod a terrible pet. This fringe tidbit is well known to aquarists. Giant isopods are famously boring in exhibits. They will find a corner of the tank and sit there, motionless, for months at a time, conserving every single precious calorie, just as they would in the deep. So, the why of their size becomes clearer. It's not just that they're old. Their size is their insurance policy against starvation. But this law, as perfect as it seems, is still debated. Ecologists still argue whether Kleiber's law holds true at the extremes of the deep sea. Does it apply to a 400-year-old shark, or a bacteria-farming tube worm? Or are there other unknown metabolic cheats at play that we haven't even discovered yet? So, you're big, you're old, you're an efficient, living battery. You've solved the cold problem and the food problem. But there's a third, simpler reason to be big. There's no one left to eat you. You've adapted to the cold, giving you a 150-year lifespan. You've adapted to the scarcity, turning your massive body into a hyper-efficient energy storage tank. You've solved the internal problems, but there's a third, much simpler, external factor. The deep sea, especially the abyss, is a safe zone. This is a strange way to think about a place that would kill you in a second, but compare it to the surface. The epipelagic zone you left, the coral reef, the sunlit jungle. That place is a war zone. It is packed with fast, agile, visual predators. Sharks, barracuda, tuna, sailfish. An endless, high-speed, high-metabolism arms race where everyone is trying to eat everyone else all the time. Down here, at 4,000 meters, it's just empty. The large, active predators are few and far between. The crushing pressure, the cold, and the lack of food make that high-speed surface lifestyle an impossibility. This brings us to the third law of gigantism, the predator release model. This theory is beautifully simple. It suggests that animals in the deep are released from the evolutionary pressure of predation. On the surface, if you're a crab, you are in a constant arms race. You're trading off. You could evolve a thicker, heavier shell for protection, but a thicker shell means you're heavier and slower, making you easier prey for a different, shell-crushing predator. You could evolve to be faster, but that requires a lighter shell, making you more vulnerable. You can't get too big because you'd be a slow, obvious, calorie-rich target. The constant threat of being eaten keeps you small, agile, and specialized. But in the deep, that pressure is gone. The arms race is over, and you've won by default. The pressure to stay small, agile, and hidden is lifted. There's no one here to chase you, no one to crack your shell. So, what's stopping you from just growing? The perfect example, the poster child for this theory, is the Japanese spider crab, Macrochira campferi. You've seen this creature in nightmares. It has the largest leg span of any arthropod on Earth. Its body, the carapace, is only about the size of a basketball, 40 centimeters. But its legs, its front chelipeds, claws, can be 12.5 feet, 3.8 meters, from tip to tip. It is a living 12-foot-wide scaffold of spindly legs, and it is, by all definitions, awkward. It is a slow, gangly, delicate creature. It looks like a surrealist painting by Salvador Dali. On land, it can barely support its own weight. Its thin legs buckle. In the water, it moves with a slow, deliberate, almost clumsy gait, a stilt walker of the deep. On a sunlit coral reef, this creature would be exterminated in an afternoon. It would be an all-you-can-eat buffet for every passing shark. But it doesn't live on the reef. It lives on the continental slopes, from 300 to 400 meters down. And in that safe, dim world, its slowness doesn't matter. Its only real predators are the occasional large octopus and other crabs. It has been released. So it just keeps growing. The historical fact is that the Japanese spider crab has been a part of Japanese folklore and cuisine for centuries, known as taka-ashigani, tall-legged crab. It was first described by a Western scientist, Coenrad Jacob Temminck, in 1836, based on specimens brought back by the naturalist Philipp Franz von Siebold. But its bizarre, monstrous appearance made it more of a cabinet of curiosities item than a subject of serious biological study for decades. The scientific evidence for its predator release strategy comes from its life cycle. In its larval stage, the spider crab is a tiny, transparent zoea, a piece of plankton. It lives near the surface in that high-speed war zone, and it is hunted viciously. 99.9% of them are eaten. But the lucky few that survive, as they grow, descend. They leave the war zone and enter the safe zone. As adults, they are free from that intense pressure. They just exist, and they live for up to 100 years. A 100-year lifespan plus indeterminate growth plus no predators equals a 12-foot giant. This fringe tidbit is one of my favorites. These crabs are known as decorators. Their shells are often covered in other living creatures. They will intentionally pick up sea sponges and, most notably, stinging anemones, and stick them to their own shells. This is a form of camouflage to blend in with the rocky, sponge-covered sea floor. It's a ghillie suit for a 12-foot crab. This all seems to paint a clear picture. But like everything in the deep, the why is still murky. Evolutionary biologists still debate if this is predator release or a form of delayed maturity. Are they big because nothing eats them? Or are they big because it takes them an absurdly long time, maybe 60 years, to even become sexually mature, and they just grow that entire time? The two ideas are linked, but the cause versus effect is a tangled mess. So, we have three theories. 1. The cold, you live a long time. 2. The scarcity. You need a big gas tank to survive the famine. 3. The predators. No one is left to stop you from getting big. These three laws seem to cover everything. But there is a fourth theory. A final, deeply weird and counterintuitive reason for gigantism. And it has to do not with food, or predators, or time, but with the very air you breathe. So you've accepted the first three laws. It's cold, so you live a long time. There's no food, so you need a big gas tank. There are no predators, so nothing's stopping you. It's a neat three-part package. But there is a fourth theory, a final law, and it is the most counterintuitive, backward theory of them all. And it has to do with breathing. You are sinking. You are now in a part of the ocean known as an oxygen minimum zone, or OMZ. These are vast, globe-spanning dead zones that exist in the mid-water, often between 200 meters and 1,500 meters. In these zones, due to complex currents and bacterial activity, the dissolved oxygen levels are so low that most complex life cannot survive. They are vast, suffocating patches of ocean. And here is the paradox. We consistently find some of our largest invertebrates living at the edges of these suffocating zones. This makes zero sense. It's the opposite of what we'd expect. A bigger body with more cells should need more oxygen, not less. A giant should be the first thing to die in an OMZ, not the last. What is going on? This brings us to the fourth law of gigantism, the oxygen adaptation. This theory flips the entire script. It asks, what if a giant body isn't a disadvantage in low oxygen? What if it's an adaptation to it? Let's go back to one of our most terrifying creatures, the giant sea spider, Colossea. You know this one. Legs that span 70 centimeters, 27 inches, but a body so tiny it's barely a nub where the legs join. This creature is the theory. First, sea spiders, or pycnogonids, don't have gills. They don't have lungs. They don't have any specialized breathing organs. They breathe by simple passive diffusion. They absorb oxygen from the water directly through their skin. Now, let's do the math. The problem for any animal is the surface area to volume ratio. Volume. This is your body, your cells. This is the stuff that needs oxygen. Surface area. This is your skin. This is the stuff that gets oxygen. As you get bigger in a normal way, like a ball, your volume, this is what you need, increases much, much faster than your surface area. Supply. You quickly suffocate. This is why you need lungs, gills, etc. The giant sea spider found an evolutionary cheat. It cheated the math. It didn't grow a bigger body, which would increase its volume and its need. It grew impossibly long, skinny legs. The scientific evidence is right there in its shape. Those long, spindly legs give it a massive surface area supply relative to its microscopic volume need. It has evolved to be, in essence, a gills on legs. Its entire body is a hyper-efficient oxygen-gathering surface. In the low oxygen world of the deep, it is the only shape that works. It's not surviving in low oxygen despite its size. It has become a giant because that's the only way to survive in low oxygen. These creatures are so ancient, they are a historical fact of evolutionary nightmares. Pycnogonids, as a group, are living fossils. Their lineage diverged from all other arthropods, insects, crustaceans, over 450 million years ago. They are not spiders. They are something else. They were a taxonomic mess for 19th century biologists, who gave them the charming nickname nobodies. This all-legs strategy has some weird side effects. This fringe tidbit is one of the strangest. They are the moms, or rather, the dads. The female lays the eggs, but the male sea spider is the one who gathers them, fertilizes them, and carries the egg clutches around on a specialized extra pair of legs called ovagers until they hatch. He is the dedicated 12-legged single dad of the deep. This all leads to a classic scholarly debate. Is this leg breathing why they got big? Or did they get big first? For other reasons like predator release. And then the leg breathing was the only consequence that worked? It's the ultimate chicken and egg, and the sea spider isn't talking. So, we have our 4 laws. 1. Cold. You live long, so you grow long. 2. Scarcity. You need a big gas tank for the famines. 3. Predators. There's no one to stop you from growing. 4. Oxygen. You need a giant surface to breathe. These 4 laws, in some combination, explain how these giants can exist, but they don't explain how they survive. How do you survive the physics? How do you stop your very cells, your proteins, from being crushed by 6,000 pounds of pressure per square inch? The theories are in place. You have the why of the giants: cold, scarcity, safety, and oxygen. But there's a problem, and it's a physics problem. You are now at 4,000 meters, the abyssopelagic zone. The pressure here is 400 atmospheres. That's 5,800 pounds per square inch. This is a number so large it's meaningless. So let's be specific. It's the equivalent of having an entire full-sized pickup truck stacked, end to end, on every single square inch of your body. So why aren't all these creatures instantly, catastrophically crushed? This is the squishy problem. Our entire human experience with pressure involves hollow, air-filled objects. We think of a tin can being crushed flat. We think of a submarine's hull groaning. But a deep-sea creature, a jellyfish, a squid, a fish, it isn't a hollow, air-filled object. It is essentially a bag of water, and water, for all practical purposes, is incompressible. So, the popular myth of a deep-sea animal just imploding is wrong. A jellyfish being 95% water is structurally fine. It's not crushed. The real problem, the one that should kill everything, isn't structural. It's molecular. Here is the protein prison. Your entire life, your ability to see, to move, to digest, to think, is just a quadrillion-a-second cascade of chemical reactions. And every single one of those reactions is controlled by a protein, an enzyme. These proteins are not blobs, they are origami. They are folded into incredibly complex, specific 3D shapes. The protein is a working machine. An unfolded protein is a broken machine. This is what pressure does. That 5,800 psi of physical pressure unfolds them. It flattens the origami. It breaks the machines. It doesn't matter if you're a jellyfish or a shark. If your proteins unfold, your enzymes stop working. Your cells stop breathing. You die. This is the real difference. A metal submarine implodes. That's a structural failure of a rigid, hollow object. A deep-sea fish should die from a biochemical failure as its internal machinery is hammered flat. But it doesn't. Why? Because life, in its infinite genius, found a magic molecule. And this is the best part. You already know this molecule. It's the chemical that makes fish smell fishy. As they decompose, it's called trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. Here is the scientific evidence. On the surface, TMAO is just a waste product. In the deep, it is a piezolyte. That literally means pressure protector. Deep-sea cells flood their interiors with TMAO. They saturate themselves with it. This molecule acts as a molecular scaffold. It's an internal pressure for the proteins. As the external water pressure, 5,800 psi, tries to unfold the protein, the internal concentration of TMAO pushes back, holding the protein in its correct, folded, functional shape. This leads to a simple, beautiful, measurable rule. The deeper, the smellier. The deeper an animal lives, the more pressure it endures, the more TMAO it has to pack into its cells to counteract it. The hadal-zoned snailfish, the deepest fish on Earth, are stuffed with TMAO. They are, by our standards, the fishiest fish in the world. This isn't a new discovery. This historical fact is that TMAO was first identified in 1914 in shark's blood, but its role was a mystery for decades. Its true function as a piezolyte wasn't understood until the 1970s and 80s, when deep-sea biology, the what, and biochemistry, the how, finally merged. And now, this fringe tidbit. This finally explains what really happens when you bring up a deep-sea fish. We all have that cartoon image of a fish exploding as its swim bladder, which they don't have, expands. That's a myth. The reality is much weirder. The fish is full of TMAO, perfectly chemically balanced for 5,800 psi. You haul it up to the surface, where the pressure is 1 atmosphere. You have removed the external pressure. But the internal pressure, the high concentration of piezolytes, is still there. This high concentration of TMAO now overstabilizes its proteins. It freezes them solid. The enzymes lock up, freeze in their folded state. The fish, in essence, dies of molecular depressurization sickness. It's not that it explodes, it's that it seizes at a cellular level. We know that it works. But the how? Well, that's still a fight. Chemists still argue about the exact quantum-level mechanism of TMAO. How precisely does it interact with the water molecules around the protein to create this perfect, invisible scaffolding? We know the result, but the fine-point physics of it is still a matter of intense computer modeling. So, life is clever. It has solved the pressure problem. It has a chemical shield that allows its machinery to work. It can exist down here. But existing isn't living. It still needs energy. It still needs food. And on this vast, flat, cold, muddy, and empty floor of the abyss, life doesn't spread out. It clusters. It huddles in desperate, thriving communities around the only places it can find energy, around oases of impossible alien life. So life has a chemical shield against the pressure. It can survive, but it still needs energy. It still needs to eat. And you are on the abyssopelagic plain, the vast 4,000-meter deep desert that covers more of Earth than all the continents combined. It is a flat, freezing, muddy plain, and the only food is the nutritionally bankrupt marine snow that drifts down from the sky 2 miles up. This is a world of waiting, a world of starvation. You are in the Alvin Submersible, one of the first deep-diving human vehicles. It is 1977. You are a geologist, not a biologist. You are diving near the Galapagos Rift, a mid-ocean ridge where the tectonic plates are pulling apart. Your mission is not to find life, it's to look at rocks. But your external temperature sensors are telling you something impossible. The water here is supposed to be 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the rule. But your sensor is reading 5 degrees Celsius, then 8 degrees Celsius, then 10 degrees Celsius. You are flying the submersible, blind, in the dark, following a trail of warm water. Your floodlights hit something. You see a shimmering in the water, like the heat haze on a desert highway. And then you see the source. It's a chimney. A 20-meter tall, 65-foot, gnarled, twisted spire of black rock. It looks like a burnt-out cathedral, and from the steeples, it is belching a thick, roiling, pitch-black cloud of smoke. This is a black smoker, a hydrothermal vent. The smoke is water, superheated to 400 degrees Celsius, 750 degrees Fahrenheit, by the magma chamber, the molten core of the Earth, that sits just below this thin patch of seafloor. But the 400-degree water isn't the shock. The chimney is. Your floodlights illuminate the rock, and you realize the black chimney isn't black. It is white. It's covered. It is paved and crawling with life. This is not a desert. This is a city, a dense, thriving metropolis of life. Your lights are filled with swarms of ghostly white crabs scuttling over every surface. You see fields of giant dinner plate-sized clams, their flesh a startling bloody red. And most bizarre of all, you see forests, thick, dense groves of 8-foot-tall, white, leathery tubes, and from the top of each tube, a vibrant blood-red plume waves in the hot, toxic water. This is it. This is the single most profound, paradigm-shifting biological discovery of the 20th century. You are the first human to ever witness an entire ecosystem that does not, in any way, depend on the sun. On the surface, all life is built on photosynthesis, plants using sunlight for energy. This entire city is built on chemosynthesis. Here is the scientific evidence, the rule of this new world. That black smoke is not smoke. It is water, so hot it has stripped the rocks of their minerals, and it is rich in hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg gas. To you, hydrogen sulfide is a lethal toxin. A few breaths would kill you. To the bacteria living here, in this boiling water, it is food. Quadrillions of extremophile bacteria have evolved to eat the hydrogen sulfide. They breathe this toxic chemical in the same way a plant breathes sunlight. These bacteria are the plants of this ecosystem. They are the producers. The entire food web is built on them. The white crabs are eating the mats of bacteria. The giant clams are farming the bacteria inside their own gills. The entire impossible city is built on a foundation of toxic gas and geothermal heat. This historical fact cannot be overstated. The 1977 discovery of these vents completely rewrote the textbooks for life. The rule for all of human history was life equals sunlight. This discovery proved the rule was wrong. It proved that life only needs two things: liquid water and an energy gradient, a source of hot and cold, or rich and poor. This discovery is the reason we are so obsessed with other planets. It blew the doors open for astrobiology. Suddenly, moons like Jupiter's Europa or Saturn's Enceladus, which are frozen on the outside, but are geologically active and hot on the inside under their liquid water oceans. They became the #1 place to look for alien life. We are looking for these, for chemosynthetic life, not for little green men. And here's the fringe tidbit. That 400 degrees Celsius water, it's not technically boiling. How can water be 400 degrees Celsius and not be steam? The pressure, the 400 atmospheres of pressure, 5,800 psi, prevent the water from expanding into steam. It can't. So, it enters a bizarre fourth state of matter called a supercritical fluid, a strange, angry, hyperdense liquid gas that is the only thing that has the power to strip this many minerals from the rock. This discovery was so fundamental, it reopened the biggest question of all. Astrobiologists still argue whether Earth's first life began in a warm little pond. On the surface, Darwin's idea, or if it was born 3.8 billion years ago in one of these deep, dark, superheated, protected vents. This is a city built on toxic fire, and its most iconic, giant, and impossible resident is the one waving right in front of your face. A creature with no mouth, no gut, and no anus. This hydrothermal vent is a city of impossible life, and you are floating in front of its most iconic and giant resident. The one from the video, you are looking at the forest of Riftia pachyptila, the giant tube worm. They are everywhere, a dense grove of white, leathery tubes, some as tall as a person, reaching 2.4 meters, 8 feet. They look less like animals and more like a bizarre, alien geological feature, as if the vent itself is growing a pelt of white stalks. Each worm lives inside this thick, white chitinous tube, which protects it from the scuttling crabs and the chaotic, hot water. At the top of each tube, the flower of the vent sticks out. It's a vibrant, blood-red plume. It's hypnotic. It waves and fans in the black, shimmering water. It looks like a flower, but it's a gill. And the reason it's so shockingly, brilliantly red is that it is packed with a unique, superpowered hemoglobin. This is the worm's only connection to the outside world, and this hemoglobin is designed not just to grab oxygen, but to aggressively grab the toxic chemicals from the vent. And this is where the true impossibility of this creature begins. As the video said, this is an animal with no mouth, no stomach, no digestive tract, and no anus. It cannot eat. It cannot chew. It cannot excrete. By every biological rule you've ever learned, it should not be alive. So how does it live? The answer is Supergiant. That beautiful red plume isn't just absorbing oxygen from the cold, 4 degrees Celsius, seawater. It is also, at the same time, absorbing the hydrogen sulfide, the food, from the hot 400 degrees Celsius vent fluid. It is a chemical vampire, sucking up the building blocks of life. It then transports these chemicals down its 8-foot-long body to a massive, unique internal organ called the trophosome. This organ is the engine of the worm. It is a vast, spongy, dark brown mass that can make up 50% of the worm's total body weight. And it is not the worm. It is a farm. The scientific evidence is one of the most beautiful examples of symbiosis on Earth. The trophosome is not flesh in the normal sense. It is a living bacterial apartment complex. It is packed with 1 trillion symbiotic chemosynthetic bacteria. This is the deal. 1. The worm. The worm is the delivery guy and the safe house. Its giant 8-foot body is just a house for the bacteria. Its red plume is a delivery service, using its superhemoglobin to deliver the toxic hydrogen sulfide to the bacteria. 2. The bacteria. The bacteria are the farmers. Living safely inside the worm's house, they eat the hydrogen sulfide, and in return, they make food, sugars, fats, for the worm. The worm is a farmer. It doesn't eat food. It grows its own food, inside its own body. It has traded its entire digestive system for a living, internal chemical reactor. When Riftia was first discovered in 1977, this is a historical fact. Its biology was so alien, so completely off the charts, that scientists had no idea where to put it in the tree of life. It had no mouth, no gut. It was provisionally placed in its own phylum, a rank as high as all vertebrates, us. It was like finding an alien. We now know it's a type of annelid, or segmented worm, but one that took a drastic evolutionary left turn. And the chemistry of it is still baffling. This fringe tidbit is a mystery. The worm's red plume is absorbing both oxygen and hydrogen sulfide at the same time. This is a chemical impossibility. These two chemicals react violently with each other. They burn on contact. The worm's hemoglobin is somehow grabbing both of these enemies, holding them in its hands. The hemoglobin molecule, keeping them separate during the long transport down to the trophosome, and then delivering them. How it stops them from reacting and exploding inside its own blood is still a profound mystery. And for all this, we still don't know the basics. Scientists still argue about how tube worms reproduce. We know they have separate sexes, males and females. But in the chaotic, boiling, toxic soup of event, how does the sperm find the egg? And more importantly, the larvae, the babies, they have a normal mouth and stomach. They don't have their bacteria partners. So how, in the vast, cold, dark ocean, does a tiny microscopic larva find a new vent, get the exact right bacteria, and then have its entire digestive system dissolve and transform into a trophosome? It's a life cycle that still seems like science fiction. These hot vents, these oases of chemosynthetic life, are one of the pillars of the deep. But the abyss has other oases. Cold oases, toxic lakes on the sea floor itself, where death and life meet at a shoreline. You are moving. The Alvin sub, or perhaps a more modern ROV, glides over the vast, monotonous, muddy plain of the abyss. For hours it's been the same. A grey, featureless desert. Then the ROV's powerful sonar, its eyes in the dark, shows you something impossible. Ahead of you, there is a shoreline. You can't believe it. You push the ROV forward. Your floodlights cut through the black, and you see it with your own eyes. It's a beach, and beyond it is a lake. You are at the bottom of the ocean, 3,000 meters down, and you are looking at a lake. You can see the surface of it, shimmering. You can see ripples moving across it, disturbed by the ROV's thrusters. This is a brine pool, or a cold seep. This is an oasis of a different kind. You are looking at a lake, under the sea, where super salty, methane-rich water is seeping up from under the sea floor, from deep within the Earth's crust. This brine, this super salty water, is 4 to 5 times saltier than the surrounding seawater. This makes it denser, and because it's denser, it doesn't mix. It pools. It settles into the depressions on the seafloor, creating a lake with its own surface, its own shoreline, and its own physics. This lake is also a toxic bath. This brine is anoxic. It has 0 oxygen. And it is saturated with toxic methane and hydrogen sulfide, the same rotten egg gas from the vents. This place is a trap. If a deep-sea fish, or a crab, or an eel is swimming along, hunting in the dark, and it misses the shoreline, and it swims into this lake, it is instantly killed. The anoxic, toxic brine pickles it, preserves it, mummifies it. The scientific evidence for this is one of the most horrifying and metal images in all of oceanography. ROVs have filmed the shores of these pools. They are littered with the preserved, dead, mummified bodies of unlucky crabs and fish that made one fatal wrong turn. The most famous one, in the Gulf of Mexico, is nicknamed the Jacuzzi of Despair. But this is the rule of the deep. Where you find death, you find life. The inside of the pool is a mummifying death trap. But the rim, the shoreline, is a different story. Just like at the hydrothermal vents, a different kind of chemosynthetic bacteria has evolved. This kind doesn't eat sulfide, it eats methane. The shoreline of this toxic lake is a thriving, living mat of methane-eating bacteria. And this bacterial mat supports an entirely different ecosystem. The rim of the jacuzzi of despair is not dead. It is crammed with life. You see fields of deep-sea mussels, thousands of them, packed shoulder to shoulder, their shells pointed towards the toxic lake. Why? Because their gills are also farms. They are packed with methane-eating symbiotic bacteria. They are farming the methane, just like the tube worms were farming the sulfide. This is a historical fact that took a long time to piece together. The first brine pools were discovered in the Red Sea in the 1960s, but they were just seen as geological oddities. Hot, salty, dead pools, their ecosystem nature, the life on the rim part, wasn't understood until the 1990s, when scientists began exploring the cold seeps in the Gulf of Mexico. And that fringe tidbit about the jacuzzi of despair, it's not just a cold seep. The lake in the Gulf of Mexico is a balmy 71 degrees Celsius, 160 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a hot, salty, toxic hot tub of death, surrounded by a thriving city of mussels who are eating the fumes. The origin of these pools is still a mystery. Geologists still argue about their formation. Is this brine just ancient, trapped seawater from the Jurassic period, when the Gulf of Mexico was a shallow, evaporating sea, and this fossil water is just now seeping up? Or is it the result of ongoing salt tectonics, where massive underground mountains of salt are moving and squeezing the rock, forcing this brine to the surface? These seeps, these vents, they are a steady, reliable stream of life, a chemical spring in the desert. But there is another island of life in the deep one that is not steady, one that is not reliable. It is an island that arrives not with a seep, but with a thud. You are back on the vast, empty, abyssal plain, 4,000 meters down. The vents and the brine pools are islands, but they are rare islands, tied to geology. For 99% of the abyss, the only food is the thin, constant, miserable marine snow. It's a world surviving on crumbs. And then it happens. A thud. A 40-ton sperm whale, having died of old age or a ship strike on the surface 2.5 miles above, has just finished its final 9-hour journey. It hits the soft, abyssal mud, a colossal 60-foot mountain of food. This is a whale fall, and it is the single largest input of concentrated food the deep sea will ever see. This one, single random event has just delivered the equivalent of 2,000 years of marine snow to this one spot. It is not a meal. It is a dynasty. It is the founding of a new, temporary civilization. The clock has just started on an ecosystem that will last for a century, and the first residents are already arriving. Stage 1. The mobile scavengers. The smell of the carcass, the oils, the blood, is traveling for miles on the slow, deep currents. And within hours, the first responders arrive. You see them? They are not small. A 20-foot-long, slow-moving Pacific sleeper shark, the one from the video, glides in, its ancient senses honed for this exact moment, leading it to the feast. And with it come the hagfish. The hagfish is a 500-million-year-old horror. It is a living fossil that has survived 5 mass extinctions. It is a purple, eel-like creature, but it has no spine. It has no jaw. Its mouth is a nightmarish unfolding plate of keratinous teeth. It latches on to the whale's flesh, and then, to rip a chunk off, it ties its own body in a knot, and passes the knot up to its head, using the knot as leverage to tear the flesh away. As a defense, it produces gallons of slime, a glycoprotein that instantly clogs the gills of any shark that tries to bite it. They are the vultures of the deep, and 1,000 of them are now swarming the whale. The scientific evidence shows this scavenger stage is a violent, chaotic frenzy. The sharks, the hagfish, the first giant isopods, they will tear and rip at the soft tissue, the flesh, and the blubber. This stage will last for 1 to 2 years, until 40 to 60% of the whale's total mass has been eaten. The flesh is gone. The sharks and hagfish have moved on. The easy food is gone. Now stage 2 begins. The enrichment opportunists. The bugs move in. But these are not the bugs you know. The soil around the whale is now saturated with the enrichment, the oils and fats. And a new, bizarre creature appears on the bones themselves. This is the Osedax worm, the zombie worm. Osedax literally means bone eater. You see the bones, and they are covered in what looks like a red, fuzzy moss. That moss is a colony of Osedax. Like the giant tube worm, they have no mouths and no stomachs. They are all female. Each red plume is a female, and she has a root system that secretes acid. They are dissolving the whale's bones, melting the skeleton, to get at the tiny percentage of fat, lipids, locked inside the bone. And the mating strategy? This is one of the strangest. The worms, you see, the hundreds of red plumes, they are all females. The males are microscopic. They are dwarf males that are sucked into the female's tube. They live inside her body, sometimes 100 of them at a time. Her only job is to be a sperm bank and a bone melter. The bones are being dissolved. The fats are gone. This stage lasts 5 to 10 years. And now, the final stage begins. Stage 3, the sulfophilic stage. The bones, as they are finally broken down by bacteria, begin to release hydrogen sulfide, the rotten egg gas, the exact same gas from the hydrothermal vents. The whale skeleton has now become a chemosynthetic ecosystem. A miniature vent community, the same one we saw miles away, appears. Mussels, clams, and sulfide-eating bacteria, all the vent creatures, they colonize the skeleton. This final zombie stage of the whale fall will last for 50 to 100 years. A single dead whale has become a multi-generational island of life. This entire beautiful complex process, we had no idea it existed. This is a historical fact. The concept of a whale fall was known. We assumed something ate them. But the ecosystem was first studied in 1987. The Alvin submersible was lost. It had stumbled upon a whale fall completely by accident. And this fringe tidbit is the most important. Scientists now believe these whale falls and the Osedax worm are the key to the vent mystery. How does a riftia tube worm spread from one vent which might be 1,000 miles away, to a new one. By hopping. The larvae of these vent creatures, floating in the dark, land on these Osidax-covered whale falls, using them as stepping stones, a highway of bones across the abyss. And this has led to a fascinating paleontological debate. Did the Osidax bone-eating worms co-evolve with whales in the last 40 million years? Or are they ancient? Did they first evolve to eat the bones of Pliocene-era marine reptiles? The Mosasaurus? Are these zombie worms the same worms that ate the dinosaurs of the sea? This island of death is a feast for all. But it is a paradise for the bugs of the deep. The ones from the video that, thanks to our 4 laws, grew to terrifying and efficient sizes. The whale fall has landed. The sharks and hagfish have begun the frenzied, tearing work of the first stage. But they are not the only first responders. The smell of oil and decomposing flesh is on the current, and they have arrived, scuttling across the mud. You are looking at Bathynomus giganteus, the giant isopod. You know this creature. We met it in the introduction, and it's the one that always makes the headlines. It is, for all intents and purposes, a pill bug, the same roly-poly you might find under a damp log in your garden. Except, this one is 50 centimeters, 1.6 feet, long. It is a roly-poly the size of a domestic cat or a small armored dog. And now it all clicks. The 4 laws of gigantism we talked about. This creature isn't just one of them. It is the perfect synthesis of them all. This is its moment. Law number 2, scarcity, is its entire purpose for being. This isopod is a pure, dedicated scavenger. It lives its entire life for this one moment. The whale fall. It has arrived at the feast, and it will gorge. It will use its 4 sets of jaws to tear at the blubber and flesh, and it will eat until its body is visibly distended, until it is almost bloated with calories. It must do this. It is a living pantry. It has to be this big to store this much energy, because this one meal is all it's going to get. And that's where law number 1, cold, comes in. How does it make that one meal last? With a metabolism so slow, it borders on suspended animation. The 4 degrees Celsius water is its power saver mode. It has to be slow. It must be slow. A fast metabolism is a death sentence in a food desert. This isn't a theory. We have seen it. This is the 5-year fast. The Toba Aquarium in Japan had a giant isopod, affectionately named Number 1. It was a local celebrity. In January 2009, it was fed a whole horse mackerel. It ate it, and then it stopped. The keepers offered it food, day after day, week after week. It refused. It just sat. It sat for 1 year. It sat for 3 years. It sat for 5 years. The media became obsessed. Number 1 was the icon of patience, or perhaps just stubbornness. Then, in February 2014, after 5 years and 41 days without a single bite of food, it just died. This wasn't a fluke. This is their strategy. The scientific evidence from the autopsy of Number 1 was even more baffling. It wasn't starved. Its internal organs weren't wasted away. It was fine. Scientists still don't know why it died. It seemed to just turn off. But it proved, in the most dramatic way possible, that the suspended animation metabolism is real. This half-foot-long bug can run its internal battery for half a decade on a single meal. You look at its anatomy. It is a perfect survival tank. It is a biological armadillo. Its body is covered in hard, overlapping, segmented plates of chitin, a shell that protects it from the pressure and from the few predators, like the sleeper shark, that might try to eat it. It has 7 pairs of legs, 14 legs in total, for its slow, steady, low-energy crawl across the mud. And at its head, it has 2 massive compound eyes, which are almost useless in the dark, and 2 sets of antennae. One short, one enormously long. These are its nose. This is the sensory equipment it uses to smell the dark, to catch the one molecule of dead whale that might drift past it, its only signal for survival. This creature, when it was first discovered, broke the Victorian mind. This is a historical fact. In 1879, a French zoologist, Alphonse Milne Edwards, dredged one up from the Gulf of Mexico. The Challenger expedition had just proven the Azoic Hypothesis wrong. The public was just getting used to the idea that the deep wasn't empty. And then, this thing, a foot-long monster bug, was pulled onto a deck. It was the first proof that the deep wasn't just alive, but that it was full of monsters. It was the nightmare fuel that confirmed their worst and best fears. And of course, because it's humanity, our first question was, can we eat it? This fringe tidbit is, yes, they are edible. In parts of Asia, particularly Taiwan, they are sometimes caught in deep-sea trawls, and they are served. They are steamed, and apparently they taste like a muddy, giant, and slightly more stringy than you'd like shrimp or lobster. For all its fame, its private life is a total mystery. Scientists still argue about their mating. We almost never see it. We have no idea how they find each other or what their courtship is. All we know is that we've found females, and they have a brood pouch, a marsupium, like a kangaroo. They don't lay their eggs. They hold them, and the eggs are enormous. A single egg can be 13 millimeters, half an inch long. The babies, manka, hatch inside the pouch, and they stay there, safe, until they are miniature, 3-inch-long versions of the adults. They are one of the few creatures in the deep that invests in its young. You watch the isopod, a 450-million-year-old design, a perfect low-energy tank, as it begins its 5-year meal. It is a simple, beautiful, and efficient design, upscaled by the laws of the deep. But the next creature arriving at the feast is not simple. It is not efficient. It is a biological impossibility that shouldn't exist at all. The whalefall is a bug feast. The giant isopods are crawling over it, armored tanks at a buffet. But now, another stranger shape arrives, stilt walking over the mud. It is the alien from the video. You are looking at Coloscendis colossa, the giant sea spider. It is a living, walking nightmare, or more accurately, a walking set of legs. You remember this creature. It's the one that cheated the laws of biology. A body the size of your thumb, but with legs that span 70 centimeters, 27 inches. It is, for all practical purposes, all legs. And now, at this feast, law number 4, oxygen, the gills on legs theory, makes perfect sense. This creature is a walking surface area, designed to breathe in the low oxygen deep. But its other adaptations are what make it a true monster of the abyss. Its organs, as you'll recall, are in its legs, its digestive tract, its reproductive system. It's all decentralized, packed into those spindly limbs. But how does it eat? You look at its head. It doesn't have a mouth. It doesn't have jaws. It has a proboscis. It's a long, hard, straw-like tube that it can point and insert. It is the vampire of the deep. It is a sucker feeder. Normally it finds a soft-bodied anemone or a sea cucumber on the mud, sticks its proboscis into it, and sucks out its insides. It is a parasite, an assassin of the soft. But here, at the Whale Fall, it has hit the jackpot. It walks over the carcass, inserts its proboscis into the soft, decaying flesh, and drinks the whale like a smoothie. But this all-legs design creates a new, critical engineering problem. A tiny thumb-sized body means a tiny, weak heart. Its heart is just a simple, pulsing tube. It is not strong enough to pump blood, or hemolymph, all the way down to the tips of its 70-centimeter legs and all the way back. It shouldn't be able to function. It should be dead-legged. The scientific evidence for its solution is one of the most bizarre in all of biology. It has a walking heart, or more accurately, its stomach does the pumping. The digestive tract, the gut that is inside its legs, is not a passive tube. It has peristalsis, a rhythmic muscular squeezing, the same squeezing your own intestines use to move food. It turns out this gut squeezing is what moves the blood. The stomach is a diffuse heart. The act of digesting is the same as the act of circulating. It is a biological Rube Goldberg machine that is so insane, it's a miracle it works at all. This entire lineage is a historical fact of being left over. Pycnogonids, the sea spiders, are true living fossils. Their lineage is ancient. It diverged from all other arthropods, insects, crustaceans, true spiders, over 450 million years ago. They are not spiders. They are not crustaceans. They are something else. They are the last survivors of a different kind of life, one that lost the evolutionary race, except in the deep sea, where its bizarre solution just happened to be perfect. This all organs in legs strategy, however, has one major design flaw. This fringe tidbit is a matter of pure physics. Because its vital organs are in its legs, breaking a leg is not an injury. It is fatal if a predator grabs a leg. It's not losing a limb. It's losing a liver. They are, for all their monstrous appearance, incredibly delicate. This all makes them a taxonomic nightmare. Taxonomists are still fighting about where pycnogonids belong. The DNA evidence is a mess. The fossil record is a mess. Are they chelicerates, the group with true spiders and scorpions? Or are they a completely separate branch of the arthropod tree? Are they, in fact, aliens that evolved before the rules of arthropod design were even set? We still don't know where to file them in the cabinet of life. You watch the 12-legged vampire walk delicately across the whale's body, its gut-heart pumping, its legs breathing. These bug giants, the isopod and the sea spider, are the perfect examples of adapting to scarcity, pressure, and low oxygen. But they are not the only ones at this feast. The scavengers are here. And the predators that hunt those scavengers are also here. The ancient, slow-moving sharks of the deep. You're at the Whale Fall. The hagfish are a writhing, slime-producing carpet. The giant isopods are armored tanks, gorging themselves. This is a city of scavengers. And now the landlord has arrived. A shadow glides in, slow and silent, but massive. It's a 23-foot, 7-meter-long shape that blots out the darkness. This is Somniosus pacificus, the Pacific sleeper shark. This is the creature the video mentioned, the one with an unconfirmed but terrifying 9.2-meter, 30-foot sighting. That would make it larger than the biggest great white shark ever recorded. But it is nothing like a great white. It's called a sleeper shark for a reason. It is unbelievably slow. It moves with a sluggish, almost lazy side-to-side sway. Its cruising speed is less than 1 mile per hour. You could outwalk it. It seems less like a predator and more like a waterlogged, half-awake log. But do not let the name fool you. This shark is not just a scavenger. It is one of the most successful and mysterious predators in the entire ocean. The scientific evidence for this is found in their stomachs. When we've been lucky enough to rarely catch and examine them, we don't just find scavenged bits. We find whole, fast-swimming prey. We've found adult salmon. We've found fast-moving squid. We've even found the remains of harbor seals and sea lions. This is the great sleeper shark paradox. How does a 1 mile per hour half-asleep log catch a 20 mile per hour salmon or a seal that is the definition of agile? This is the silent hunter hypothesis. The shark's slowness is its weapon. It doesn't chase prey, it ambushes them. The leading theory is that it uses its slowness and its massive size to become silent. On a normal, fast-swimming shark, the gills are loud, flushing water. The sleeper shark's gills are designed for silent, passive running. It's hypothesized that it drifts like a piece of debris up on sleeping seals, in the case of the seal eaters, or sleeping fish, and gets so close that its final 1 mile per hour lunge is too short to miss. It doesn't outswim its prey. It outstealths them. But here, at the whale fall, it is not a silent hunter. It is a scavenger. And it is terrifyingly efficient. It doesn't nibble. It approaches the 40-ton carcass, bites down with its specialized saw-like teeth, and then it rolls. It uses its entire 7-meter-long, multi-ton body in a crocodile death roll, carving out a 20-pound, perfectly circular plug of blubber. It is a living, slow-moving ice cream scoop of death. This shark isn't new. This historical fact is that these sharks were well known to indigenous Arctic and subarctic peoples for centuries. They were a crucial part of life, not for their meat, but for their livers. Their massive livers are saturated with squalene, an oil which was harvested and used as a high-quality, long-burning fuel for lamps. They were, in effect, a living oil barrel. But the flesh is a different story. This fringe tidbit is famous in the north. The flesh of the sleeper shark is mildly toxic. Why? Because it's loaded with TMAO, our old friend, the piezolite molecule, from section 14, to help it withstand the pressure and cold. When this TMAO is eaten and digested, it breaks down into a compound that is a potent neurotoxin. In sled dogs, this is infamous. A dog that eats fresh sleeper shark flesh will become shark drunk. It will stagger, fall over, and be unable to walk. The flesh can be made edible by boiling it in several changes of water, or by burying it for 6 months and letting it ferment and rot, which is the origin of the Icelandic hadal. And for all this, we still don't know the basics. We call it a deep-sea shark. We call it an Arctic shark, but the truth is, we don't know where it lives. Scientists still argue about their range and habitat. We've found them at 2,000 meters. We've also filmed them at the surface in temperate 60-degree water off the coast of California. Are they a deep-sea species that migrates to the surface? Are they an Arctic species that migrates to the tropics? Or are they just everywhere? Are they a single, go-anywhere, eat-anything global shark, and we just never see them? You watch the 7-meter, drunken, silent, ice cream scoop shark as it carves another 20-pound meal. It is a true master of the deep, a slow, toxic, silent, and ancient predator. But it has a cousin, a very close relative, a shark that is not just a master of the deep, but a master of time itself. The Pacific sleeper shark is a master of the deep, but it has a cousin, a very close relative living in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic and the Arctic. And this cousin is not just a master of the deep. It is a master of time itself. You are now in the Arctic, under the ice. The water is a permanent -1 degree Celsius. And here you meet the true sleeper. This is Somniosus microcephalus, the Greenland shark. It is the Pacific sleeper's even slower cousin. If the Pacific sleeper was a log, the Greenland shark is a rock. It is the slowest swimming shark ever recorded. Its top speed, when it's really trying, is about 1.6 miles per hour. Its average cruising speed is 0.76 miles per hour. You, right now, could casually outswim it with one arm. It is a 20-foot, 1-ton predator that moves slower than a pedestrian, and yet it eats. We find seals, reindeer that fell through ice, and even polar bears in its stomach. It is the ultimate silent hunter from the last chapter, an animal so slow it has become invisible to the senses of its fast prey. But its slowness is not its secret. Its age is. This animal, this slow-moving 20-foot rock, is the longest living vertebrate on Earth. Full stop. It is a creature that measures its life not in years or even decades, but in centuries. For the longest time, this was just a theory. We knew they were old. Law number 1, cold equals slow equals long life. But we had no idea how old. We couldn't age them. They don't have bones, they're cartilage, so you can't count growth rings. Then a team of Danish scientists led by Julius Nielsen had a brilliant and morbid idea. The scientific evidence is one of the most clever things in modern biology. They focused on the shark's eye. The eye lens, the center of your eye, is a unique piece of metabolically inert tissue. It's crystalline. You are born with it, and the core of it never changes. It grows in layers like an onion. But the center of that shark's eye is the exact same tissue that it had at birth. This birth tissue contains a timestamp. By using radiocarbon dating, they could measure the amount of carbon-14 in that birth core. And thanks to the 1950s atomic bomb tests, which doubled the amount of C-14 in the atmosphere, they had a spike in the data. They could tell, definitively, if a shark was pre-bomb or post-bomb. They tested 28 dead Greenland sharks. The verdict shattered our understanding of life. The youngest sharks were post-bomb, but the oldest one they found was 392 years old, with a margin of error of plus or minus 120 years. Let's be clear. That means the youngest it could be was 272. And the average age, was 400. This is not a freak individual. This is normal. A 400-year-old shark is just an adult. This changes everything. This is a life lived in geological time. This animal, this predator, does not even reach sexual maturity. Until it is 150 years old, it is celibate for a century and a half. This isn't just law number 1, a long life. This is a different kind of life. This is an existence measured in regimes. A 400-year slow-motion existence. In the total, crushing, freezing dark. This is a historical fact that, for centuries, no one cared. In Iceland and Greenland, the Greenland shark was known only as a nuisance. It was the trash fish that would steal the halibut from a fisherman's long line. They were hated. Fishermen would catch them, cut them free, often cutting their tail off, to teach them a lesson, and curse them. They had no idea that the nuisance they were cursing was born in the 1700s. And this fringe tidbit is the final weird parasitic twist. Almost all adult Greenland sharks are blind. You look at their eye, and you see a thing, a dangling 1-inch long worm. It's a specific parasitic copepod, Omatocoita elongata. This worm attaches itself to the shark's cornea. It eats the eyeball. The shark is blind. But does it matter? It lives in the 24/7 dark of the Arctic. It hunts by smell and vibration. And the parasite itself, is bioluminescent. This is the great, unproven, beautiful theory. What if the shark uses this? What if this parasite is not a parasite, but a lure? What if the 400-year-old, blind, slow-motion rock is fishing in the dark, using its own eyeball-eating parasite as a glowing lure for the halibut it steals? We are, quite literally, just beginning to understand this creature. Historians and biologists still argue. Is this 400-year lifespan a modern thing, or has it always been this way? And the big one, is it possible? Is it statistically likely that there is a Greenland shark alive today that was swimming in the Arctic when the Mayflower set sail? Yes. These sharks, the Pacific sleeper and the Greenland, are the ancient giants of flesh and cartilage. But there are other giants. Giants of chitin, giants of legs. The Japanese spider crab we met. The one that proved law number 3. Let's give it its own, well-deserved 12-foot stage. These sharks are the ancient kings, the masters of time and silence, giants of flesh and cartilage. But the deep has other giants. Giants of chitin, giants of legs. You'll remember this one. We met it back in Section 12. It was the poster child for our third law of gigantism, the predator release model. And now you see it, stilt-walking across the continental slope. This is Macrochera caempheri, the Japanese spider crab. And it is the single largest arthropod, the jointed leg animals, in the entire world by leg span. It is a creature of pure, beautiful, and absurd proportions. The carapace, its main body, is really not that impressive. It's about 40 centimeters, 16 inches wide, the size of a large pizza or a basketball. But the legs are a different story. The front chelipeds, the claw arms, can be 3.8 meters, 12.5 feet. from tip to tip. It is a 12-foot wide scaffold of thin, spindly, delicate legs. This is a shallow giant. This is an important distinction. It is not an abyssal or hadal creature. It doesn't live in the 4,000-meter deep trenches. It lives on the continental slope, in a range from 50 meters, 160 feet, down to about 600 meters, 2,000 feet. It's a twilight giant, a king of the in-between. It's an assemblage creature, a slow-moving scavenger. It walks delicately over the mud, using its long, long arms to pick at anything and everything. Dead fish, discarded algae, mollusks, sea stars. It's the janitor of the slope. You'll also remember its decorator habit, the fringe tidbit about it sticking things to its shell. It's not just for camouflage. We have the scientific evidence for why it does this. This is its defense. Its main predator in the deep is the octopus, which is smart, fast, and strong. The crab's shell is its weak point. So the crab recruits a living shield. It will pick up stinging sea anemones and attach them to its back. The anemones get a free ride to a new feeding ground, and the crab gets an active defense system of stinging, venomous tentacles. A do-not-touch sign for any octopus. But its greatest vulnerability isn't an octopus. It's itself. Like the Greenland shark, it lives a long time, up to 100 years. But as an arthropod, it has a hard exoskeleton. To grow, it must molt. A molt is an arthropod's death sentence. It is the most dangerous moment of its 100-year life. To grow, the 12-foot wide crab must shed its entire, hard, external skeleton. It pulls its 12-foot-long legs out of its old 12-foot-long leg sleeves. This process takes hours, and when it emerges, its new shell is soft. It's as soft as wet paper. For the next days, until that new shell hardens, this 12-foot giant is defenseless. It is a 40-pound meal of soft shell crab for anything that finds it. It must hide, motionless, and prey. This creature is so strange, it has a historical fact attached to its very name. It is Macrochaera caempfri. It's named after Engelbert Caempfer, a 17th-century German naturalist and physician. Caempfer lived in Japan for 2 years, 1690 to 92, and he was one of the first Westerners to scientifically document its natural history. He brought back the first specimens, just the claws, to Europe, introducing the monster to the West's cabinets of curiosities. And the weirdest part? For all its 12-foot giant status, it doesn't start that way. Its baby form is a fringe tidbit of pure biological magic. It starts its life as a zoea, a microscopic, transparent, spiky plankton that looks nothing like a crab. It drifts in the surface currents for months, in that high-speed war zone, before it finally transforms and sinks, beginning its 100-year slow-motion life as a giant. This slow life, slow growth, complex larva strategy is exactly why we can't have them. Aquaculturists still argue, can these crabs be farmed? The demand, especially in Japan, is high. But the answer is no. How do you farm an animal that takes 100 years to grow, and whose babies are microscopic plankton that require a completely different ocean and food than the adults? You can't. They are a perfect, slow, deep-sea product that cannot be rushed. You watch the 12-foot anemone-covered 100-year-old giant walk slowly past your viewport. These creatures, the shark, the crab, the squid, They are giants of one. They are individuals. But the most massive and longest giant in the entire ocean is not one thing at all. You are ascending. You've left the 4,000-meter deep floor, the world of whale falls and bug giants, and you are back in the mid-water, the twilight zone, around 700 to 1,000 meters. You are in the water column, the vast 3D emptiness that makes up 90% of the ocean's volume. You see a thing. It's not a creature. It's a line. A long, shimmering, translucent line, spiraling in the dark. It looks like a 100-foot-long piece of ghostly bioluminescent fishing net. It is a nubia, and then you see the rest of it. It continues, on and on. You are looking at Praia Dubia, the creature from the video. It is 45 meters, 150 feet, long. Let's put that in perspective. The blue whale, the largest animal on Earth, tops out at 30 meters, 100 feet. This shimmering, spiraling line is longer than a blue whale. It is, by one definition, the longest animal on the planet. And this is where we have to break the rules, because this is the central lie of Praia Dubia. It is not one animal. You are looking at a siphonophore, and a siphonophore is not an it. It is a they. This is not an individual. It is a colony. This 150-foot-long creature is, in fact, composed of thousands of tiny, individual, specialized clones, all glued together, all working in perfect, terrifying unison. These clones are called zooids. Think of it this way. Your body is an individual made of organs: heart, lungs, stomach. A siphonophore is an individual made of other individuals. It's as if your heart, your lungs, and your stomach were all separate animals, all brothers, that decided to fuse together to build a you. This 150-foot line is a floating, living factory, and every zooid has a different job. At the front end, you have the nectophores. These are the engines. They are just zooids that have evolved to be nothing but a bell. They are just a muscle. They cannot eat. They cannot reproduce. They just pulse, 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 propelling the entire 150-foot colony through the water. Then you have the bracts. These are the shields. They are zooids that are just flaps of gelatin, protecting the important zooids. Then you have the business end. You have the gastrozoids. These are the stomachs. Each stomach zooid has one long, stinging tentacle attached. This is the fishing line. And finally, you have the gonozoids. These are the gonads, the reproductive zooids, tasked with making the next colony. This is the scientific evidence that blurs the line. No single zooid can survive on its own. The stomach zooid can't swim. The engine zooid can't eat. They are all 100% dependent on each other, and they are all genetically identical clones. They all budded, cloned from one single fertilized egg. They even share a nervous system, a simple nerve net, and a nutrient system, a stem that runs the length of the colony, like a communal gut. So, is it a colony of thousands of tiny, specialized brothers? Or is it one 150-foot-long superorganism? The historical fact is that you know what a siphonophore is. You've seen its most famous cousin, the Portuguese man-o'-war, that blue bubble jellyfish that washes up on beaches, the one with the agonizing sting. That's not a jellyfish. That blue bubble The sail is a single giant gas-filled zooid, and the stinging tentacles are dozens of separate specialized stomach zooids and gonad zooids, all hanging from it. You've been looking at a siphonophore your whole life. Praia dubia is just its 150-foot long deep-sea nightmare cousin, and it is a predator, a terrifyingly effective one. This fringe tidbit is what makes it a true giant. That 150-foot-long stem is trailed by hundreds of those gastrozooid stomach tentacles. Each one is covered in nematocysts, the same stinging cells as a jellyfish. But they are so fine, and so long, and so translucent. They are invisible. The siphonophore just pulses through the midwater, a 150-foot-long curtain of death. Any tiny crustacean, any small fish, it just blunders into this invisible web, is instantly stung, paralyzed and reeled in by the stomach zooid that caught it. This, of course, has led to a purely scholarly debate that has nothing to do with science and everything to incept with philosophy. Philosophers of biology still argue, what is an individual? Is it one body, us? Is it one genetic code, a siphonophore? What about an ant colony? 1 million separate bodies, all from one mother, who cannot survive without each other. Is the ant colony the individual? This 150-foot-long line is the same argument. It forces us to ask where one animal ends and many begin. This is the giant of length, a 150-foot-long committee that has evolved to act like a single creature. But there are other giants in the gelatinous world. Not giants of length, giants of volume. The great, dark phantoms of the deep. You are at 1,000 meters. The midnight zone. A shape appears in your floodlights. It's not a line like the siphonophore. It's a mass. A huge, dark, crimson and billowing mass. You are looking at Stygiomedusa gigantea, the giant phantom jelly. This is the creature from the video that is quite literally a myth. It is the Sasquatch of the deep sea. It is so rare, it's almost a legend. Since it was first discovered in 1899, it has only been seen and confirmed by humans about 110 times. That's it. 110 sightings. In 110 years, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about this animal. And it is a true giant. Its bell, the main head part, is a massive, leathery 1 meter, 3.3 feet, wide dome. It's not translucent, like a surface jelly. It's thick, opaque, and a deep, bloody crimson or black. But the bell isn't the giant part. The arms are. As the video said, these are arms, not tentacles. This is a key distinction. Tentacles are the long, thin, stinging ones, like on a man-o'-war. This jelly doesn't have those. Instead, it has 4 massive, thick, fleshy, oral arms, meaning mouth arms. They are 10 meters, 33 feet long. They just trail behind it. They look like ghostly crimson curtains, and they are its weapon. It is an engulfing predator. It doesn't sting its prey into submission. It's too low-tech for that. It just envelops them. It uses these 4 33-foot-long, thick, fleshy curtains to act as a living, sticky net. Any fish, any squid that blunders into these arms is trapped, muffled by the fleshy sheets, and then the arms draw the prey up into the bell, where the mouth is. This is what makes the video's claim so huge, competing with squids and whales. This animal, this jellyfish, is so massive in its fishing capacity, a 33-foot long, 3-foot wide net, that it is considered one of the largest and most important invertebrate predators in the entire midnight zone. It's in the same weight class, the same ecological role, as a giant squid. And like the squid, we had no idea how it hunted until this century. The scientific evidence came from an ROV, the Tiburon, in 2003. In the Sea of Cortez, the Tiburon filmed a Stygiomedusa, and it had a fish, a hoki or grenadier, trapped in its oral arms. It was the smoking gun. It was the first ever proof of what this 10-meter-long ghost actually ate. This solved a 100-year-old mystery. This is a historical fact. The creature was first discovered. A specimen was dredged up, mangled, from a depth of 1,500 meters in 1899 by Carl Chun. For the next 100 years, we only knew it from these dead, torn-up, mangled net specimens. We had no idea what it looked like alive. We had no idea how it moved. We assumed it was a jellyfish. We never assumed it was one of the apex predators of its zone. This fringe tidbit is a perfect friend of a friend story. The giant phantom jelly has a friend. It's often seen with a symbiotic fish, Thalassobathia pelagica. This little fish is immune to the stickiness of the arms, and it hides inside the jelly's giant 1-meter-wide bell. It's a mobile home. The jelly provides a perfectly safe, 3-foot-wide fortress for the fish, and in return, the fish cleanse it, eating the parasites that try to attach to its host. But the biggest mystery remains. Scientists still argue about its habitat and identity. We've seen it at 1,000 meters, the top of the midnight zone. We've also seen it at 7,000 meters, the hadal zone. So, what is it? Is it one go-anywhere species that can survive at all pressures, from 1,000 meters to 7,000 meters? Or are we looking at multiple cryptic species, and we're just calling them all Stygiomedusa because they look the same? We don't have enough data. We don't have enough sightings. This is the key. We have seen all of these creatures, the Siphonophore, the phantom jelly, the colossal squid, because of ROVS, because of technology. We have spent this entire journey in an imaginary submersible, exploring the what. But we've skipped the how. How did we get here? How did we ever breach this 7-mile thick wall of pressure in the real world? The human story, the story of the machines, is a story of genius, tragedy, and cracked windows. This whole journey, our journey, has been imaginary. We have been floating ghost-like in a perfect, invisible submersible, protected by the power of what if. But for 60 years, real humans, made of crushable flesh and bone, have been trying to make this journey a reality. They have been building machines to breach the 7-mile thick wall of pressure. The first, and perhaps bravest attempt, was in the 1930s. This was the Wright brothers' era of deep-sea exploration, and our pilots were William Beebe, a naturalist, and Otis Barton, an engineer. They built a machine called the bathysphere, and it was exactly what it sounds like. It was a steel ball on a string. It was a 4,700-pound cast-iron sphere, just 4.5 feet wide. It had 2 tiny 3-inch thick quartz windows. It had no engines. It had no propellers. It could not move. It was, quite literally, dangled over the side of a ship on a 7-ton, 1-inch thick steel cable. It was a bucket for lowering men into the abyss. Beebe was the eyes, and Barton was the engineer, running the phone line and the oxygen. This is a historical fact. On August 15, 1934, off the coast of Bermuda, Beebe and Barton were lowered to a depth of 3,028 feet, 923 meters. They became the first humans to ever enter the twilight zone. They were the first to see, with their own eyes, the living constellation of bioluminescence. Beebe, a brilliant naturalist, described what he saw over the crackling phone line. He described new species of fish, silver-sided and glowing. When he published his descriptions, they were so poetic, so mad. A serpent of unknown origin with fangs and 200 light ports, that the scientific community dismissed him. They thought he was a fantasist, suffering from nitrogen narcosis. It wasn't until decades later, when ROVs filmed these exact creatures, the viperfish, the loosejaw, that Beebe was vindicated. He wasn't a poet, he was a reporter. The bathysphere was a tether. The next step was to cut the cord. This began the race to the true bottom in the 1950s. The target, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, the 11,000-meter Hades we'd found. The machine was the Trieste. The video mentioned it. It was a bathyscaphe, a deep boat. It was not a submarine. It was a blimp, or a hot air balloon for the deep. It had a massive float, a 50-foot-long, thin-skinned tank, filled with gasoline, which is buoyant, just like air, but incompressible, unlike air. And hanging underneath this giant, floating gas tank was a tiny 6.5-foot barrel, a sphere of 5-inch thick steel. This was the gondola. On January 23, 1960, 2 men squeezed into that sphere, a Swiss oceanographer, Jacques Picard, and a U.S. Navy lieutenant, Don Walsh. They were dropped into the ocean. To sink, they vented gasoline. To slow down, they dropped tons of iron-shot ballast. It was a 5-hour, one-way fall to the bottom. And the cracked window. The video was right. It's a terrifying, true story. They were at 30,000 feet, deeper than Everest is tall, in the total black. And they heard it. A loud, cracking bang. An outer 6-inch thick plexiglass window, a viewport, had cracked under the 16,000 psi of pressure. They were in a steel barrel, 7 miles down, and their window cracked. They looked at each other and kept going down. They landed. They spent 20 minutes on the bottom, and they proved life exists at the bottom. The scientific evidence is this. Picard, in his log, claimed he saw a flatfish, a sole, 1 foot long, swimming in the mud. For 50 years, this was hotly debated. Biologists insisted a vertebrate fish could not survive that pressure. We'll get to that. They insisted he must have seen a sea cucumber, a holothurian, which looks like a flatfish. It doesn't matter. He saw something. He proved the hadal zone was not sterile. The Trieste was a stunt. It was a flag-planting mission, a Sputnik for the deep. It went once. It proved it could be done. It was not a science machine. The real workhorse, the pickup truck of the deep, was DSV-2 Alvin. This is the true hero of this story. A 3-man titanium sphere. This is the sub that, in 1977, found the hydrothermal vents. This is the sub that found the Osidax worms. Alvin is the lens for 80% of what we know, and Alvin has the best fringe tidbit. In 1968, Alvin was being lowered for a dive. A steel cable snapped. The sub, with the hatch open, sank. It plummeted 1,500 meters and stuck in the mud. The crew, who had scrambled out, survived. But the sub was lost. It sat on the bottom of the ocean for 10 months. When they finally recovered it, they looked inside. The crew's lunches, a thermos of soup, apples, and bologna sandwiches, were still on the table, and they were perfectly preserved. They were soggy, but they had not rotted. The combination of the intense cold and the low oxygen had stopped decomposition cold. It was the lunch that saved oceanography, proving the deep was a world of preservation. And this brings us to the scholarly debate. What was the Trieste's legacy? Historians still argue. Was it a circus act? A 7-mile-down stunt? Or did its 20-minute dive save the deep sea? Because at the time, in 1960, the Atomic Energy Commission was seriously proposing using the Mariana Trench as a dumping ground for nuclear waste. The logic was, it's 7 miles down. It's empty. Who cares? Walsh and Pickard's single 20-minute dive, and their fish, or cucumber, proved it was not empty. It was alive. And that one fact was enough to stop the dumping, the stunt. Saved the abyss. These human-occupied vehicles, they were the Apollo missions. Brave, expensive, and dangerous. But the real work, the real exploration, that would be done by the Nereus and its fate. The human-occupied vehicles, the bathysphere, the Trieste, the Alvin, they are the Apollo missions. They are heroic, incredibly expensive, and terrifyingly risky. Every time a human goes down, you are putting a fragile, crushable, air-breathing body inside a metal life support bubble, and you are betting everything on the idea that your engineering is perfect. A microscopic weld failure, a cracked window, it's over. This risk is why the real work of the deep, the day-in, day-out exploration, is not done by humans. It's done by robots. This is the rise of the ROV, the remotely operated vehicle. This is the true explorer of the deep. It is, quite simply, a robot on a leash. You, the scientist, are sitting in a warm, comfortable, safe control room. It looks like a NASA mission control, on the deck of a ship, sipping coffee. And you are flying a 10-ton car-sized robot, 7 miles below you, with a joystick. The leash is the key. It's a massive, armored, fiber-optic umbilical cable. This cable is a two-way street. It sends massive amounts of power, kilowatts, down to the robot to run its powerful thrusters, lights, and arms. And it sends a massive amount of data, high-definition video, up to your screens. This is the workhorse. This is the Victor 6000, the French ROV from the video, which just recently became famous for its role in the Titan submersible search. It is a 4.5-ton beast, a monster, designed to work, non-stop, at depths up to 6,000 meters, the abyssal zone. It is a floating pickup truck with manipulator arms, cameras, and sonar. But there's a problem. 6,000 meters. The abyss. What about the hadal zone? What about the trenches? 7,000 meters, 9,000 meters, 11,000 meters. This is the hybrid problem. You cannot just make the leash longer. An 11,000 meter, 7-mile, armored, copper-filled umbilical cable would be so heavy it would snap under its own weight. It's a physics barrier. You cannot power an ROV at hadal depth until 2009. When the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution built a machine that cheated. It was called Nereus, and it was the most brilliant hybrid Frankenbot ever built. It had 2 modes. Mode 1, it could be a normal, autonomous, untethered robot, an AUV, just mapping the seafloor with sonar. Mode 2, the Genius, it could be a tethered ROV, but without the leash. Here is the scientific evidence of its brilliance. Nereus was battery-powered, no power cable needed. But how did it send video? The data problem? Nereus would spool out. A hair-thin, 400-micron fiber optic cable. It was essentially a 7-mile-long spool of human hair that was pure glass. This leash was so thin, it was almost weightless. It was just for data. It was the only way. And in May 2009, it worked. The Nereus HROV reached the Challenger Deep. It was the first vehicle to visit the bottom of the world since 1998, and the first in history to send back live video and work on the bottom. This historical fact is that Nereus was a workhorse. It wasn't a stunt. It immediately went to work, exploring the trenches, discovering new species of hadal snailfish, our piezolyte pact friend, and changing our understanding of the deep. It was the only one of its kind. And then, 2014. The tragedy. The video mentioned it. Nereus was on a mission, 30 days into a 40-day cruise exploring the Kermadec Trench near New Zealand. It was at a depth of 9,900 meters, 6.2 miles. The pressure was over 14,000 psi. And the control room lost contact. The data feed just stopped. Silence. For a robot at that depth, silence is death. The team waited. They pinged it. They waited. Nothing. They began the contingency, sailing back and forth, hoping it would surface. Days later, pieces of the Nereus floated to the surface. Pieces of its buoyancy foam. Pieces of its frame. They were bits. It wasn't a malfunction, it was an implosion. A catastrophic, instantaneous failure. At 14,000 psi, the pressure had found one microscopic flaw. A micro crack in a ceramic housing. A fatigued seal. And in 1 microsecond, that 14,000 psi of force found its way in. The robot was, in an instant, shredded by the force of the ocean collapsing into the empty spaces of its body. This fringe tidbit is the physics of that sound. The implosion of a hadal lander is so violent, it registers on hydrophones, underwater microphones, for miles. It is a gunshot of pure physical force. The Nereus was gone. The only hadal-class, reusable video robot on Earth was gone. And this has created the biggest scholarly debate in oceanography. What is the future of hadal exploration? The Nereus fiber optic model was brilliant, but fragile. Our full autonomous AUV landers, robots you just drop, pray, and hope they come back 8 hours later with data, the only safe way to go? Or was Nereus just the prototype, and we must rebuild it? We are trying to reach this final frontier, the true deepest part of the ocean. We are, once again, entering the hadal zone. You are sinking again. you are passing 6,000 meters, or 19,685 feet. You are now leaving the abyss and entering the final, deepest, and most mysterious realm on Earth. You are in the hadal zone. The video was right. This realm is named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, and it is a fitting name. This is not a zone in the way the others were. The abyss was a vast, flat plain that covered the globe. The hadal zone is not a plain. It is the opposite. It is an anti-mountain. This realm only exists in the deep ocean trenches, the Mariana Trench, the Tonga Trench, the Kermadec Trench. It is not a layer. It is a series of isolated V-shaped pockets in the seafloor. It is the underworld in the truest sense, a world beneath the bottom of the world. This V-shape is the most important part. For decades, we assumed this must be the deadest place on Earth. It is the farthest from the sun, the farthest from the food. We were, once again, completely wrong. That V-shape is a funnel, a gravity funnel. For millions of years, all the marine snow, the dead plankton, all the slumps of sediment from the continental shelves, and every single whale fall, it all slides down the slopes of the abyss, and it collects at the bottom of this V. It is a nutrient trap. This is the great final paradox of the deep. The hadal zone, the deepest part of the ocean, is richer in food and life than the entire abyssal plain above it. It is an oasis of concentrated life. And this food, this compost at the bottom of the world, supports new giants. It supports a new king. You are at 8,000 meters. Your lights hit a fish. It's not a monster. It's strange. It's about 12 inches long. It is a pale, translucent pink. It has no scales. It is gelatinous. It looks soft, almost unmade. This is the hadal snailfish, Pseudoleparis sweari, and it is the undisputed king of the hadal trench. It is the apex predator of the 8,000-meter world. The scientific evidence on this creature is a masterpiece of extreme biology. 1, it is not surviving, it is thriving. Your lights reveal dozens of them, swimming, hunting, mating. 2, it is packed to the gills with TMAO, our piezolyte friend. From section 14. It is a chemical shield in fish form, perfectly adapted to a pressure of 12,000 psi. 3, and it is hunting. What does it eat? Your lights show you. The water is full of bugs, not marine snow. A blizzard of tiny shrimp-like creatures. These are amphipods. The snailfish is a wolf, and it is hunting packs of these amphipods. This historical fact is a final bitter laugh at the Challenger expedition. Remember the Challenger? In the 1870s, it dredged the hadal zone and its nets came up empty. This empty net reinforced the Azoic Hypothesis for the deepest water. It proved life couldn't exist at 8,000 meters. We now know their nets were just too slow. They were dragging a 1-mile-per-hour bucket through a swarm of fast-swimming amphipods and active 12-inch snailfish. The fish just swam out of the way. This snailfish has one final fringe tidbit of an adaptation. It has no swim bladder. It can't. At 12,000 psi, a gas bag is a physical impossibility. So how does it float? how does it not just sink? Its flesh, that gelatinous, unmade flesh, is less dense than the water around it. It is naturally buoyant. It has evolved to be a living, gelatinous balloon. This fish is the king. But it has a limit. This has created the greatest scholarly debate in deep-sea biology. What is the limit of life? We have found snailfish, alive and well, at 8,200 meters. But below 8,400 meters, we only find invertebrates. We never find a vertebrate. A fish. Is there a pressure limit for bones? Is it chemically impossible for a vertebrate, a fish as we know it, to pack enough TMAO into its cells to survive at 11,000 meters? Is 8,200 meters the hard, biochemical line that no fish can ever cross? This snailfish, this king, it hunts the amphipod bugs. But there is one bug in the hadal zone that is not on its menu. A bug the size of a guinea pig. The hadal zone is a funnel of life. The king of this 8,000-meter deep realm is the gelatinous pink snailfish. And its food is the swarm of tiny shrimp-like amphipods that fill the trench. The snailfish is the wolf, and the amphipods are the rabbits. But as you are watching this ecosystem, you see one amphipod that is not rabbit-sized. It is 34 centimeters, 13.4 inches long. You are looking at Alicella gigantea, the supergiant amphipod. This is the one from the video. This is the one that forces the analogy. This is like finding an ant the size of a guinea pig, or a cockroach the size of a shoe. You are looking at a shrimp-like bug that is larger than a lobster. This is a true hadal giant, and this is where our laws get interesting. This is not a slow-growth giant like the 400-year-old shark. We think it grows very fast, feasting on the riches of the funnel. Instead, this creature is the poster child for law number 1, cold, and law number 3, predator release, all wrapped up in a new hadal context. The theory. On the flat abyssal plain, 4,000 to 6,000 meters, the scavenger role is dominated by fish, like eels, rays. But in the hadal zone, below 8,400 meters, those fish disappear. The pressure limit for vertebrates, that we just discussed, kicks in. The refuge. The deep trench is a refuge for invertebrates. The predators, the fish, are gone. The result. The amphipods, released from this fish predation, took over. They exploded in size, filling the scavenger niche that the fish had to abandon. This is its hadal niche. Alicella is, in effect, the giant isopod of the hadal trench. It's the exact same evolutionary strategy, just deeper. It is a scavenger that must be big. Law number 2, to travel from feast to feast, and to store that food for the famine times. It's a hadal tank bug, but it has one more trick, a chemical one. The scientific evidence is in its shell. When analyzed, the exoskeleton of Alicella is found to contain a massive amount of aluminum. It has an aluminum shield. This is weird. Where is it getting aluminum, which is rare in the water, from the mud? And why? The leading hypothesis is twofold. 1. The aluminum gel strengthens its shell, acting as a chemical pressure shield to help it survive 16,000 psi. 2. More deviously, it makes it taste bad. It's an unpalatable shield. It's hypothesized this aluminum flavor is at what stops the hadal snailfish, which is packed with TMAO, from eating it. This creature is so bizarre. Its discovery was a historical fact of just forgetting it. The first supergiant amphipod was trawled up by a cable ship in 1899. It was a monster. It was so bizarre, no one knew what to do with it. It was put in a jar in a museum and forgotten for 60 years. It was a one-off freak until 2012. The trap story. A team of scientists from the University of Aberdeen knew the freak existed. They built a giant trap, a 2-meter-long high-pressure cage, and baited it with mackerel. They lowered this trap into the Kermadec Trench to 7,000 meters. They had one camera on it, and this is the fringe tidbit. They pulled up the trap. It was full. Not one or two. It was swarming with hundreds of 1-foot-long Alakella giants. The freak wasn't a freak. The monster wasn't rare. It was common. They had been everywhere all this time, just deep. And this leads to the final great hadal scholarly debate. Why are they only in the trenches? We never find them on the flat abyss, 2,000 meters above, so why? Is it the food? Is the funnel effect so rich that it's the only place that can support a giant amphipod? Or is it the pressure? Is the hadal zone a refuge? Are they hiding down there, in a pressure prison where their fish predators cannot follow them? We don't know. We have just found this life. We have just opened the door to the underworld, this 7-mile deep island of giants, and we are already on the verge of destroying it. We have reached the bottom. You have made the 11,000-meter journey. You've seen the living constellation. You've met the 400-year-old shark. You've visited the city of fire, the vent, and you've found the 1-foot-long bugs of the hadal zone. We have finally, in the last 50 years, become aliens on our own planet. We have breached the last frontier. And because we are human, we have immediately brought our needs with us. We have just opened the door to this pristine 100-million-year-old world, and we are already on the verge of bulldozing it. The threat is not one thing, it is 3. Threat 1, deep-sea trawling. You're not in the hadal zone for this. You are on a seamount, an underwater mountain that rises 1,000 meters from the abyssal plain. These seamounts are oases, just like the vents. They are covered in 1,000-year-old, slow-growing, deep-sea coral gardens. They are the nurseries of the deep, and we are bulldozing them. Bottom trawling is a fishing practice that is, by any definition, scorched earth. A massive net, 100 feet wide, weighted with steel plates and rollers, is dragged across the seafloor. It is designed to destroy everything. It smashes the 1,000-year-old coral gardens, turning them into rubble, just to catch those few 150-year-old orange ruffy, our slow-life fish from Section 10. It is the equivalent of bulldozing a 1,000-year-old redwood forest to catch the squirrels. Threat 2, climate change. We think of global warming as a surface problem, an air problem. We are wrong. The ocean has been our shield. The scientific evidence is staggering. The global ocean has absorbed over 90% of the excess heat we have produced, and over 30% of the CO2. It is saving us and killing itself. Acidification. All that CO2 we pump into the air, it dissolves in the ocean, and it forms carbonic acid. The entire ocean is becoming more acidic. And this acid, it dissolves the shells of the tiny plankton, the foraminifera, the pteropods. This is the marine snow. This is the food for the entire deep sea. The food for the deep is failing. It's dissolving at the surface before it can even sink. The OMZ expansion. As the surface water heats up, it holds less oxygen. This warm, unbreathing water then sinks, and the oxygen minimum zones, our suffocating zones from Section 13, are growing. They are expanding. We are right now suffocating huge parts of the ocean, creating new dead zones where only bacteria can live. But these two threats, they are slow threats. They are byproducts. The third threat, the ultimate threat. It is not a byproduct. It is a direct, intentional, industrial-scale assault. This is deep-sea mining. You are back on the abyssal plain, 4,000 to 6,000 meters down. That vast, empty mudflat. It turns out, it is not empty. It is littered with rocks. They are called polymetallic nodules. They are potato-sized and potato-shaped rocks, and they are, by a quirk of 10-million-year-old chemistry, the single richest deposit of minerals on planet Earth. The scientific evidence is a jackpot. These potato rocks are saturated with the exact green technology minerals we are desperate for: cobalt, nickel, manganese, copper. They are, in effect, battery rocks. You must have these minerals to make electric cars, wind turbines, solar panels. The green revolution on the surface is about to be paid for by destroying the abyss. The mining plan is simple, and it is horrifying. 1. You build a giant 100-ton tractor-sized robot, a collector vehicle. It's a vacuum cleaner. 2. You drive this vacuum cleaner across the seafloor 24/7. 3. It sucks up the top 4 inches of the seafloor, everything. The nodules, the mud, the isopods, the sea spiders, everything. 4. It pumps this slurry, mud, rocks, life, 1,000-meter, 2.5-mile straw to a processing ship on the surface. 5. On the ship, you sift the rocks out, the money, and you dump the mud, the waste, the cold water, the life, back into the ocean. This isn't science fiction. This is a historical fact. The International Seabed Authority, ISA, is a real UN-based organization that regulates this. It owns the high seas, and in July 2023, it failed to pass a moratorium, a pause on mining. The exploration licenses are already being converted to exploitation licenses. Mining is beginning, and this fringe tidbit is the real killer. The vacuum cleaner isn't the worst part. The worst part is the cloud, the sediment plume, the mud and waste that is kicked up by the vacuum, and the waste dumped from the ship. It doesn't just go away, it drifts. It will create a permanent 100-meter thick cloud of mud that will drift for hundreds of miles, smothering, burying, and clogging the gills of all life it touches. You are not mining one spot. You are blanket killing an entire state. This has created the biggest, most agonizing scholarly debate on Earth right now. It is economists versus ecologists. the economists. We must have these minerals. We cannot stop climate change without these batteries. We must do this to save the surface. The ecologists. We are about to destroy the last pristine, unknown ecosystem on Earth. We are about to cause a mass extinction before we have even met the creatures we are killing. To save the surface, which we broke. There is no good answer. We are at a crossroads. We have just met these giants. And we, the same species that just built the Nereus to say hello, are now building a vacuum cleaner to say goodbye. What is the future of this realm? Is there any hope? You are at a crossroads. You have seen the threat. You've seen the 1,000-year-old corals being bulldozed, the acid dissolving the marine snow, and the 100-ton vacuum cleaners warming up on the seafloor, ready to erase the last pristine wilderness on Earth. It is a bleak picture. It's easy to feel hopeless. So, why? Why do this? Why study this? Why spend billions of dollars on a machine like Nereus, a machine that implodes from the sheer physics-based wrongness of being there? Why fight to protect a world we've never seen? Because the deep ocean is not just our last frontier. It is a mirror to the stars. This is the astrobiology connection. It is the why that transcends the what. Remember that 1977 discovery? The hydrothermal vent. Section 15. That city of fire, that chemosynthetic life, that entire ecosystem not based on the sun. That one discovery completely changed our search for alien life. Before 1977, we were looking for Earth-like planets, Goldilocks zones, warm, watery, sunny worlds. After 1977, we realized the sun was optional. This discovery instantly turned our attention to the moons in our own solar system. Jupiter's moon Europa, Saturn's moon Enceladus. These are ice balls. They are frozen solid on the surface. They are outside the habitable zone. They should be dead. But the scientific evidence is now irrefutable. Under those 20-mile thick ice shells are global liquid water oceans. We've seen Enceladus erupting, spraying geysers of liquid salt water into space. But how? How are they liquid? They are heated not by a sun, but by tidal flexing. The immense gravity of their parent planets, Jupiter, Saturn, is constantly squeezing and stretching them. This kneading, this friction, creates immense heat at their cores. And what must be at the bottom of those liquid water, geothermally heated oceans? Hydrothermal vents. The hadal model is our only model. If life, our life, can thrive without any sun, at 400 degrees Celsius under 6,000 psi of pressure, eating toxic gas, then why wouldn't it exist on Europa? This is a historical fact of our current space age. The Europa Clipper mission, which launched in October 2024, is on its way right now. It is not a life finder. It is a vent finder. It is designed to taste the plumes and find the conditions for life. It is, quite literally, a multi-billion-dollar Alvin submersible, looking for the exact same vent signatures our scientists found in 1977. This fringe tidbit is the coolest part. The deep-sea submersibles we are designing right now, the ones that are replacing the Nereus, they are prototypes. They are test runs for the next generation, the cryobots, the nuclear-powered drills that we will one day send to melt through the 20-mile thick ice of Europa and drop a submersible into its alien ocean. And this is the final scholarly debate. If we find life on Europa, will it be our life? Is it possible that panspermia, life seeding from comets, means we share a chemosynthetic ancestor? Or will it be a true second genesis, a different kind of life, with different DNA, different rules? That is why we study the deep. That is why we fight for it. The deep ocean is not just Earth's last frontier. It is the blueprint for the next one. You are that explorer. You are in that submersible. Your journey down, this 31-step fall, has shown you everything. The myths, the giants, the impossible physics, the 400-year-old life, the threats, and the future. You have seen the underworld, and you have found that it is not dead. It is a mirror. And now, our journey comes to an end. The lights of the submersible begin to dim, just a little. The hum of the engine softens, the thrum of the real world. A distant memory. You have fallen so far, so deep, past the light, past the giants, past the very idea of a sun, that you have found yourself in the quietest, most peaceful, most ancient place on Earth. The blackness outside your window is no longer terrifying. It is primordial. It is the before time. It is the deep, slow, cold, silent womb of the planet. A place where a 400-year life is normal. A place where life is a slow, patient, chemical miracle. Far from the frantic, hot, fast world of the surface. A world that, up there, seems so loud and temporary now. You feel the pressure, not as a threat, but as a blanket. A reminder that you are held in the single largest and oldest cradle of life on our world. You are safe in the hadal dark. The journey is over, and you can rest.